Chapter 460. Walking into the hut. Young Dingtian immediately sensed a special smell. This smell undoubtedly did not come from Wuxia. Young Dingtian was a man, so he did not feel anything special about this smell. However, any woman who smelled this smell would feel her mind sway. This smell was mysterious, otherworldly, distant and deep. It had a fatal attraction to any woman. My bullshit fiancé inside. I don't care who you are, but I ask you to leave immediately. Otherwise, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Before the little Princess Vulture came in, she sneered and said, "If you really marry me, then before we are married, I will put on countless green hats for you, one every day. Do you see the man beside me? We just made out. That feeling was really wonderful. In the words of a woman, I would rather be his slave than let you lick the soles of my shoes. I think you are dirty." In this way, in the midst of extremely vicious words, the little girl walked in and saw the back of her bullshit fiancé. "Hey, why do I see that the top of your head is a little green? So go. Don't wait until the children I give birth to in the future are not like you." Suddenly, the little girl seemed to choke on her food. Her whole person seemed to be struck by lightning, and all the vicious words were instantly swallowed back. Her beautiful eyes widened to the extreme, and looked at the back of the person in front of her in disbelief. Although it was only the back of the person, she recognized him at a glance. This was the man she had dreamed of, the man who had appeared in her countless dreams. It was actually him. Was this the arrangement of God? Was this God's favor to her Vulture? Suddenly, Vulture's heart seemed to be about to explode with joy. Her whole delicate body trembled, her face flushed red, and she suddenly lost the ability to speak. Who was this man? Of course, it was the public enemy of all men, the femme fatale, the peerless handsome man Wu Yuming. Wu Yuming turned around and nodded at Young Dingtian with a smile. "Brother Yang, we meet again." Young Dingtian bowed and said, "Brother Wu, I trust you have been well since we last met." It turned out that they had already recognized Young Dingtian on the boat, but they didn't expose him. "Hello, Miss Vulture," Wu Yuming said with a smile. Young Dingtian found that his smile was surprisingly lethal to women. Hello. Vulture's face turned red. She didn't know where to put her hands and feet. Then, she suddenly remembered what she had said and hurriedly explained. "What I said just now was nonsense. I am still pure and innocent. Moreover, I have never kissed before. My first kiss is still with me. Oh, I have never kissed a man before. Oh no. The little girl was instantly flustered. She felt that she had an impure history and realized that she couldn't explain it clearly no matter how she explained it. Subsequently, she pulled Young Dingtian over and said, "Also, my relationship with Young Dingtian is pure. We are just like blood siblings. Our relationship is absolutely pure." The little girl's face turned red and she desperately explained. "I know." Wu Yuming nodded and smiled. His eyes were full of gentleness and trust. What he said wasn't a lie. His cultivation was top-notch, and he was able to see and hear everything that Young Dingtian and the little girl were doing on the ship. Of course, he believed that the two of them were innocent. At this time Wuxia laughed and said, "Little girl, I thought about it. This marriage is related to your lifelong happiness. It really can't be forced. Since you don't want to, then forget it. Even if you can't be husband and wife, you can be brother and sister." No, the little girl hurriedly said. "I don't want any brothers. Young Dingtian, Qin Huayu Zhu Hongxue. I have a bunch of brothers. I just need a husband. Let's be husband and wife. Suddenly, Young Dingtian wished that the ground would crack open, and he could crawl into it. This little girl, she usually looks quite powerful. But today why was she so useless? "Then you are willing to marry?" Wuxia said. Yes. Vulture nodded desperately. At this time, Wu Yuming stepped forward and took out something from her arms. It seemed to be a white dagger. She said, "Senior, the token you gave me that day. Today I return it to its owner." Wuxia took it and sighed. "Child, do you know what this dagger is made of?" The old ancestor Wuxia looked at Wu Yuming with eyes full of love and kindness. It was no different from Vulture's. And the way he looked at Young Dingtian was full of mockery and indifference. There was a world of difference between the two. It seems to be made of bones. Wu Yuming said. Yes, it is made of bones. Wuling said. Back then, when I saw her, I was shocked and infatuated with her for the rest of my life. So I took a bone from my body and made it into this dagger. I gave it to her as a marriage proposal token. Yang Dingtian was stunned. Vulture's beautiful eyes were full of stars. Wulingzi's marriage proposal token was extremely romantic. According to the saying on Earth, a woman was made of a rib from a man's body. And he just took his own bone and made it into this dagger. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian was very curious. Who was this woman that Wulingzi was infatuated with? But her heart already belongs to someone. Wulingzi sighed. You should also know that people like us, once our hearts belong to someone, it will never change. So, although I am sad, I can't change it. I can only wish her happiness in my heart. But the man she fell in love with is destined to never be with her. Child, do you know who the man she fell in love with is? The Demon King Wentian. Wu Yuming said. Yang Dingtian was shocked. Wulingzi's love rival was actually the Demon King Wentian. That's right. The Demon King Wentian only has one woman in his heart. That woman is Nihility Piaoling, who wants to kill him. So she is destined to wait forever. This relationship will never have a result. Wulingzi continued. Of course, because of this, I am jealous of Wentian. When the apocalyptic war started, I, as the second strongest person in the evil ways, was unwilling to participate in the war. In the end, I just sat there and watched as the evil ways were defeated. Do you know why? Wentian fell in love with a woman he shouldn't have. He is destined to die. He is the one who destroyed the evil ways, not anyone else. Wu Yuming said. Yes. Wulingzi said. If Wentian is rational, he will win even without us. But if he is blinded by love, even if your mother and I work together, we won't be able to save him. When these words came out, Yang Dingtian was stunned. The woman Wulingzi loved should be about the same age as him, right? Why would he have a son as young as Wu Yuming? Hence, during the apocalyptic war, my netherworld sea also stood aside and watched. Wu Yuming continued. Mother said that when the Demon King Wentian died, she didn't shed a single tear. She said that Wentian deserved to die. Netherworld sea. Netherworld sea. Who was the woman Wulingzi fell in love with? He also knew who the mother that Wu Yuming spoke of was. The ruler of the Netherworld sea, Wu Yu. Currently, she was one of the 3 half-saints in this world. No wonder when Yang Dingtian saw Wu Yuming, he felt a strange feeling. He felt that she looked somewhat familiar, but he couldn't tell who she resembled. That's right, she resembled Wu Yu. Although Wu Yu didn't give off the feeling that she was a man or a woman, in terms of beauty, she didn't lose out to Nihility Piaoling and Dongfang Bingling. Wu Yuming looked like her. No wonder he was so handsome that he could shock the heavens and make ghosts cry. Everything could be explained. Wu Yuming, why was he so handsome? Why did he have such an otherworldly temperament? Why was he so strong? He seemed to be the male version of Dongfang Bingling. Yang Dingtian found it strange. Could it be that he jumped out from a rock? Otherwise, it was impossible for such a powerful and charming young master to appear in the world. Even if Zhu Hongxue was in front of him, she would be overshadowed. So he was the young master of the Netherworld Sea, the son of sect master Wu Yu. No wonder, no wonder. Only the extremely powerful, extremely wealthy, and extremely aloof Netherworld Sea could nurture such an otherworldly, elegant, proud, and handsome young man. In terms of background, there was no one in this world that was more powerful than the Netherworld Sea. Yin Yang School and Black Sky Sect. No matter if it was power, mystery, nobility, or strength, they couldn't compare to the Netherworld Sea. Therefore, even Wu Yu's ordinary disciple Song Yu had the same status as Zhu Hongxue when he walked in this world. As for Song Yu, in front of Wu Yuming, he was nothing more than a slave. In fact, even Yang Dingtian's identity was far from Wu Yuming's, not to mention the power behind her. Yang Dingtian's real identity was only Dongfang Minmi's disciple. Nihility Piaoling's master was no longer important. However, Dongfang Minmi was nothing in front of Wu Yu. Even if your mother was in extreme pain, she wouldn't shed a single tear. Wulingzi said. After Wentian died, after the evil ways were destroyed, Nihility Piaoling, came to the Vulture Palace to negotiate with me, asking me to join the Tiando League. I was originally disdainful, but later I agreed. Child, do you know why? Why? Wu Yuming asked. Because Nihility Piaoling said that she was willing to be the matchmaker and proposed to your mother on my behalf. Walingzi said. She really put in a lot of effort to let the Netherworld Sea and Vulture Palace enter the Tiando League. She was willing to give Wentian's corpse to the Netherworld Sea to propose to me. When Walingzi said this, Yang Dingtian and Vulture couldn't hide their shocked expressions. These were, without a doubt, the top secrets of this world. Not to mention Yang Dingtian, even Dongfang Minmi and Shiman Wuya didn't know about these secrets. In order to rope in the Vulture Palace and the Netherworld Sea, Nihility Piaoling, as the leader of the hidden sect, actually acted as the matchmaker for Walingzi to propose to Wu Yu. Walingzi continued. I felt Nihility Piaoling's enthusiasm, and at that time I thought that since Wentian was already dead, perhaps your mother would agree to marry me. Therefore, I joined the Tiando League. However, I was only willing to join as one of the 9 sects, and not as one of the 4 sects. Therefore, I gave this bone dagger to Nihility Piaoling, and asked her to go to the Netherworld Sea to propose. This time the bone dagger wasn't returned. Your mother, Wu Yu, invited me to the Netherworld Sea for a chat, and I was immediately wild with joy. Although Yang Dingtian knew that Walingzi and Wu Yu's relationship didn't work out, he also secretly hoped that the two of them could become Qin and Jin. After that, Walingzi sighed. I went to the Netherworld Sea and met your mother. However, what I received was another rejection. However, the reason for this rejection wasn't because of Wentian. She told me that after Wentian died, she had once thought of marrying me. However, she said that if she married me, it would be harming me. When I asked her why, she said that she would never be able to give birth to any descendants, and she didn't want me to have no descendants. She wasn't a real woman. She was once a man, but because of her bone-deep love for Wentian, she turned herself into a woman, but after all, she wasn't a real woman. At this moment, Vulture couldn't help but cry out in shock. Yang Dingtian also suddenly understood why Wu Yu was so strange when he met her in the Netherworld Sea. She didn't seem to change into a man or a woman. However, even so, she could still make any man in the world go crazy. Following that, Vulture's beautiful eyes flickered, and it was obvious that she thought of Qin Ji. I don't care, I really don't care at all. Walingzi said with infatuation. However, she still rejected me, and asked me to find a normal woman to marry. In order to make up for my infatuation, she said that in the future, she would think of all ways to give birth to a descendant. No matter if it was a boy or a girl, she would marry my descendant. Therefore, this was how this marriage contract came about. It was a marriage contract that was set 200 years ago. Following that, Walingzi smiled. I didn't expect that time would pass year by year. My 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generations have all come out. Your mother still hasn't given birth to any descendants. I originally thought that this wish of mine would never be fulfilled. Who knew that some time ago, I received a letter from your mother, saying that her precious son would bring the bone dagger to Vulture Palace to ask for my hand in marriage. At that moment, my heart was bursting with joy, and after that, I looked forward to your arrival every day. Instantly, Walingzi's gaze towards Wu Yuming became even more affectionate and passionate. Today, I finally get to see you, child. You are even more outstanding and likable than I imagined. Walingzi stretched out his hand and lovingly stroked Wu Yuming's head, saying, Child, you are really charming. That's why I didn't care at all when the little girl said that she wouldn't marry me. I knew that as long as she saw you, she would immediately change her mind. Immediately, Wu Yuming's face revealed a rare shy smile. Following that, Wu Yuming knelt down and said, Before I propose, there is something that I don't dare to hide. Speak. Walingzi said, I have a confidant who is deeply in love with me, and I can't abandon her. Wu Yuming said, Junior sister Vulture should have also seen that woman. Haha. Walingzi laughed and said, I was wondering what it was. So it's this matter, no matter. For such an outstanding man, to only have one confidant is already very restrained. Little girl, do you mind? I don't mind. Vulture said, I will definitely get along well with Sister San Yang. It's normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, if he is capable. Yang Dingtian isn't as handsome as you, and he isn't as strong as you. He still has several wives. You only have 2, and you're at a disadvantage. Yang Dingtian could feel that girls were extroverted. Once a girl had a lover, she could even abandon her parents, not to mention a sworn brother. Wolingzi suddenly laughed, full of joy, and felt that he had gotten what he wanted. Then he held the bone dagger in his hand and said, Good, then this marriage is settled. Yes. Wu Yuming knelt down and said, Yes. Vulture knelt down happily. Okay, the marriage is settled. Then there's one more thing. What's your mother's attitude? Wolingzi said, regarding the revival of the Temple of Annihilation, Li Ming's traveling the world and infiltrating the Tiando League, regarding the plan to kill the chicken to warn the monkey, and sweep away that Yang Dingtian in Cloud Sky City with thunderous force, to force the Tiando League to choose a side. What's the Sea of Hades' attitude? Then, Wolingzi saw Yang Dingtian beside him and said, Oh, you're here too. It was as if he had just seen Yang Dingtian. Previously, all his attention was on Wu Yuming. In his heart, Yang Dingtian was like an ant. Here, this Yang Dingtian is also here, and he came to beg me. Wolingzi said to Wu Yuming, What's your attitude? Wu Yuming said, Li Ming has visited the Sea of Hades several times. In the end, my mother's attitude was that the Sea of Hades and the Vulture Palace are allies, and she's still neutral about this matter. Okay, then it's settled. Wolingzi said, Moreover, from our perspective, whether it's the Tiando League or the evil ways, they're all weak and small. The so-called Battle of Armageddon is like child's play. If our 2 families really interfered, then it would be a joke. Yang Dingtian's heart suddenly felt as if it was being cut by knives and axes. His so-called battle of justice was as childish as child's play in their eyes. Okay, Yang Dingtian, you heard it. The Netherworld child's attitude is my attitude. We're neutral. You can leave. Wolingzi waved his hand indifferently. Martial uncle. Wu Yuming bowed and said, Some time ago, I made a mistake when I was cultivating, and I was saved by a woman. That woman has a close relationship with Yang Dingtian, and she once begged me to help Yang Dingtian. I have to repay her for saving my life. So, I promised that no matter what, I would save Yang Dingtian's life. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian felt even more uncomfortable. When did he fall to the point where he had to rely on a woman's begging to survive? However, Yang Dingtian still bowed to Wu Yuming and said, Thank you, young Master Wu. Okay. Wolingzi said, Then let's spread the word. If Li Ming wants to beat him, then beat him, but leave Yang Dingtian alive. A smile appeared on Yang Dingtian's face. Okay, since you used to be on good terms with the little girl, we'll save your life. This is already a great favor for you. Don't be greedy, Wolingzi said. As for the upcoming battle, we're not interested, and it has nothing to do with us. Of course you can't win. Next, you can leave after attending the little girl's wedding. You can leave now. In his words, he actually didn't mention the resurrection of Dongfang Minmi anymore. At this time Vulture, who was full of joy, finally remembered the resurrection of Dongfang Minmi. He immediately said, Great-grandfather, you forgot something. You promised Yang Dingtian that you would resurrect his master. Wolingzi said, That's because you didn't agree to this marriage before. But now, it seems that this marriage is exactly what you wanted. So, this agreement naturally doesn't count anymore. Besides, our Vulture Palace and the Sea of Hades are absolutely neutral. Once I resurrect Dongfang Minmi, we'll lose this position. The little girl was suddenly very anxious. She wanted to use the wedding to threaten Wolingzi, but because she cared too much about Wu Yuming, she didn't dare to act rashly. Vulture walked in front of Wu Yuming, opened his beautiful eyes wide, and begged pitifully, Senior brother, you beg great-grandfather. Wu Yuming was a little embarrassed, because his attitude directly represented the attitude of the Sea of Hades. It's useless even if the child of the Sea of Hades begs. Wolingzi said firmly, Originally, the Sea of Hades and I didn't have a unified statement, so we could be a little more relaxed. Now we have a unified statement and are detached and neutral. My every move not only represents the Vulture Palace, but also represents the Sea of Hades. When I say detached and neutral, it means absolute neutrality. There's no room for compromise. Vulture's tears immediately flowed out. Great-grandfather, how can you do this? You don't keep your word. Besides, I also want to participate in this war. Are you going to watch me lose without doing anything? Wu Yuming frowned slightly. What a joke. Wolingzi shouted coldly. You still want to go out? Stop dreaming. In 2 days, you and the child of Hades will get married. After the marriage, you will stay in the Vulture Palace for a while. After the bullshit war over there is over, you will follow him to the Sea of Hades to visit junior sister Wuyu. From today onwards, you belong to the child of Hades. Your every move not only represents yourself, but also represents the child of Hades, the Sea of Hades, and the Vulture Palace. Don't mess around anymore. No, we are sworn brothers. I don't ask to be born in the same year, month and day, but I ask to die in the same year, month and day. I can't be disloyal. Vulture cried loudly. After I get married, I must return to Cloud Sky City with Yang Dingtian. I must participate in this war. Wolingzi frowned and looked at Yang Dingtian with cold disgust. Yang Dingtian, you are really scheming. But do you think it's fun to use a little girl like this? Then he said with a face full of disgust. All right, Yang Dingtian, you got your way. Let's make a deal. Let Vulture stay in the Vulture Palace, and not go out to mess around with you. Don't kidnap her. I will revive your master, and you can take all of that bullshit guardian ring back. From today onwards, you Vulture, and the Vulture Palace have nothing to do with each other. If I find out that you are still using the sign of the Vulture Palace to swindle people, don't blame me for being impolite. Instantly, Yang Dingtian's heart almost exploded. Endless anger and humiliation exploded in his heart. In an instant, Yang Dingtian's anger completely exploded. Chapter 461. Senior, Vulture and I got to know each other because of fate. As I said, Vulture doesn't owe me anything. No matter what. Vulture is my younger sister. She is free to do whatever she wants. I won't use her to make any deals. Even if this deal concerns my life and death, and the life and death of Cloud Sky City. Senior, it doesn't matter that you're high above and see us as ants. It doesn't matter that you don't care about our lives. You don't have to be so impatient. I won't ask for any help from you. Let's make a deal. It's just a deal. If you think it's worth it, you can do it. If you don't think it's worth it, that's good. I won't stay here any longer. I'll leave immediately. What do you think? Yang Dingtian suddenly stood up and asked Wolingzi. Oh, haha. Wolingzi laughed and said, You're angry from embarrassment. Then he raised his head and said, Young man, don't stand so high. It's very tiring for me to look up and talk to you. Yang Dingtian sat down and said, Little girl, young Master Wu, please leave for a while. I have a deal with Senior Wolingzi. Okay. Wu Yuming said and left the thatched cottage. Vulture hesitated for a moment and also left. Speak. I'll give you a chance to speak, Wolingzi said calmly. The password to open the Despair City secret realm, and all the ways to pass it. Only I know about it. Even Vulture doesn't know. Yang Dingtian said, You should know that this Despair City secret realm can create more than 5 grandmasters at once. There are also a few treasures of heaven and earth. Also, there's a demon spirit demon fire 200 years later. It's the 3rd heaven and earth mystic flame in the world. I know that 200 years may be 2 lifetimes for others, but for the Vulture Palace, it is only a short period of time. In 200 years, the secret realm of Despair City can create dozens of grandmasters, a heaven and earth mystic flame, and countless treasures for the Vulture Palace. Then Yang Dingtian said, All of this in exchange for one thing, you resurrected my master. Wolingzi was slightly moved, and then said, What an extremely generous bargaining chip. Yang Dingtian suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Usually when he said this, what awaited him was a but. However, after the marriage between the Vulture Palace and the Netherworld Sea, our Vulture Palace will become the most transcendent power in this world. We have no interest in your fighting and killing. We are absolutely neutral. Wolingzi said, 200 years ago, after the destruction of the evil ways, the evil gods, and the evil gods were killed. Nihility Piaoling personally came to negotiate with me, and only asked for my neutrality. Therefore you, a mere young Dingtian, don't expect me to change my attitude. As long as I help you, even if it is only to resurrect Dongfang Minmi, it will affect my transcendent neutrality. Then Wulingzi said disdainfully, there are 3 demi-sages in the world, me Wu Yu, and the Queen Devil Queen. My side accounts for 2/3 of them. You, a mere young Dingtian, want to rely on a mystic flame and a secret realm to order me around, Wulingzi. Don't you think demi-sages are worthless? Young Dingtian felt a chill in his heart. Then he bowed deeply and said, farewell. Then young Dingtian was about to leave. Wait, Wulingzi said indifferently. The transaction can still be carried out, but in a different way. Say it. Young Dingtian said. The most difficult part of resurrecting Dongfang Minmi is to force Dongfang Minmi's fragmented consciousness out of your brain and inject it into the soul aggregation shadow, allowing his soul to instantly recover to its original and powerful state. The second most difficult part is to guide the soul into Lung Qingchen's corpse. Wulingzi said, the first part of the technique is called the soul separation technique. It comes from an upper level 9 spirit scroll. The second part of the technique is called the art of rebirth. It comes from an elementary level 9 spirit scroll. Yang Dingtian nodded. I won't directly help you resurrect Dongfang Minmi, but you can learn this spirit scroll and resurrect Dongfang Minmi yourself. Wulingzi said. Yang Dingtian was instantly enraged. In terms of spirit talent and spirit technique, it could be said that Yang Dingtian was not even comparable to the little Princess Vulture. Now Wulingzi actually said that he could resurrect Dongfang Minmi himself. Immediately, Yang Dingtian smiled and said, Senior, do you mean that you want me to use the Despair City secret realm to exchange for the 2 spirit scrolls in your hands? No, it's a spirit scroll. Wulingzi said indifferently. The soul separation technique is an upper level 9 spirit scroll. It's not something that can be exchanged with the Despair City secret realm. I will use the art of rebirth to exchange for your Despair City secret realm. It's up to you whether you agree or not. Haha. Yang Dingtian did not even have the strength to be angry anymore. This 200-year-old old man actually proposed such a deal, using only a level 9 spirit scroll to exchange for the Despair City secret realm, the 3rd most powerful demon spirit fiend fire in the world, and all the treasures in the Despair City secret realm. Of course, this art of rebirth has a very high requirement for a martial artist's spirit talent. I can't guarantee that you will be able to learn it after you obtain the scroll. Who knows, it might backfire, and you might become a walking corpse. Wulingzi said indifferently. So it's up to you whether you agree or not. After saying that, Wulingzi closed his eyes. Yang Dingtian had experienced many ridiculous deals, but none of them were as ridiculous as today. Yang Dingtian had seen many greedy people, but none of them were as greedy as this 200-year-old old man in front of him. Of course, maybe he was not greedy. He was very generous to Wu Yuming and Vulture. Perhaps he only felt absolute disdain for them. It was just like when China was at its poorest. It spent precious foreign exchange to buy machines that were decades behind in the West. The other party had offered a ridiculous price, and they could not bargain. This was not entirely because they were greedy, but because they were completely despised. Then, how should I get the soul separation art? Yang Dingtian asked. That's none of my business. Wulingzi said indifferently. All right, my time is very precious. You have to make a decision quickly. Yang Dingtian said. Then I have one last question. Speak, Wulingzi said. What's the relationship between the so-called soul separation art and the soul assimilating art in the Temple of Blood's evil soul art? Yang Dingtian asked. Instantly, Wulingzi's expression changed and he said, I don't have the obligation to answer you. Do you want to make a deal? If you don't, then please leave. Yang Dingtian had already gotten his answer. Deal, Yang Dingtian said. But only half of the deal. I'll tell you the password to enter Despair City's secret realm. Give me the Art of Rebirth's spiritual scroll. As for how to clear the level, I won't tell you. Wulingzi was immediately disdainful. The little girl Vulture had been participating in the entire Despair City's secret realm. She knew clearly how to clear the level. Of course, he did not know that many of the levels were cleared by Yang Dingtian alone. Other than Yang Dingtian, no one else knew how to clear the level. Deal, Walingzi said indifferently. Yang Dingtian took out a pen and paper and wrote, "No Zuanity, secret realm open." Then Yang Dingtian read it again. "Did you see it clearly?" Yang Dingtian asked. Walingzi said, "Is there such a language in writing in the chaotic world?" "You don't have to care about that," Yang Dingtian said indifferently, and then burned the white paper with the secret realm's password. "Senior, it's your turn," Yang Dingtian said. Walingzi stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void. Suddenly, a scroll appeared in his hand. It was a golden scroll. "Take it," Walingzi said indifferently. "Goodbye," Yang Dingtian said. "Remember, from now on, you have nothing to do with my Vulture Palace. You have nothing to do with Vulture." Walingzi said indifferently, "If you dare to use the name of Vulture Palace, you will feel the wrath of heaven." "You worry too much," Yang Dingtian said indifferently. "Brother Tian, how is it?" Vulture asked with concern. Yang Dingtian nodded. "My great-grandfather agreed to help you revive Master?" Vulture asked. "No, but we used another method," Yang Dingtian said. "Then can you revive your master?" Vulture asked. Yang Dingtian knew very well that Walingzi did not have the slightest sincerity in this deal. He just wanted to trick him for the secret realm of Despair City. Yang Dingtian did not know if he could revive his master by himself. "Maybe it can be done," Yang Dingtian said. After saying that, Yang Dingtian walked down the stairs and asked with a smile, "Have you decided on the date of your wedding?" Vulture nodded shyly and happily. Then I wish you a happy wedding," Yang Dingtian said. You're not going to attend my wedding?" Vulture said in surprise. Yang Dingtian said, "I want to, but I don't have time. I have to leave now and revive my master in my own way." Vulture was about to cry and said, "I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. Wait for 2 more days. I will get married in 2 days. Then, I will follow you back to Cloud Sky City. We are sworn brothers, so we have to be loyal." Yang Dingtian fell silent. He turned to Vulture and said, "Girl, I said that I will not use you to make any deals. So, will you stay in the Vulture Palace, or return to Cloud Sky City to fight with us? I won't say anything. It's all up to you. But I hope that when you make a decision, it will not be because of your emotions, but because of justice." Then, Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "Emotions are easily suppressed by other emotions. And justice is a kind of willpower. It cannot be changed by anything." Yang Dingtian was right. Emotions could be suppressed. The relationship between siblings and brotherhood was very pure. But it was easily suppressed by the feelings between a man and a woman. Now, the highest emotion in Vulture's heart was undoubtedly the feelings between a man and a woman. "I will not attend your wedding, but I am willing to give you my blessings with all my emotions. Whether you return to Cloud Sky City to fight with us depends on your willpower," Yang Dingtian said word by word. Instantly, the little girl wailed and said, "I don't want to get married. I don't want to get married. I will go with you now. I will go back to Cloud Sky City with you now." Then Yang Dingtian walked down. The little girl grabbed Yang Dingtian's wrist and followed him down. As for Wu Yuming, he merely followed behind them without saying anything. "I don't want to get married. I don't want to get married. I will go back with you. I will go back with you," Vulture said as she cried. Yang Dingtian turned around and smiled faintly. "Everything, ask your own heart. If your heart is not like that, then it is useless to repeat it 10,000 times with your mouth. Stay in the Vulture Palace, and think about everything clearly. Think clearly about what you want. Then make a decision." Then, Yang Dingtian gently broke free from Vulture's hand. Vulture caught up with him again, holding the guardian ring in her hand. "Brother Tian, I was ignorant and insisted on taking this ring. Now take it back and give it to someone who needs it more. In the next few days, I will think clearly about what I want. Oh, and those demon spirit corpses, you might need them more. Take them all back." Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "I will officially give this ring to you as your wedding gift." If Vulture went back with him, Then Yang Dingtian would take back this guardian ring that could devour all damage. But if Vulture stayed, then he would give this ring to her instead. Then, Yang Dingtian said to Wu Yuming, "Young Master Wu, can you say a few words?" Okay. Wu Yuming stretched out her hand and said, "Please." Then like a paper kite his body floated out. Yang Dingtian also flew up. Although he was not as elegant, he also chased after her. "Brother Yang, please speak," Wu Yuming said. Yang Dingtian said, "Although all of you are martial artists with high innate talents, Spirit Vulture is still young. I hope that after you get married, you will not have children too early. It is best to wait until she is about 20 years old." Wu Yuming was slightly stunned. He did not expect that Yang Dingtian would talk to him about this. He immediately nodded and said, "I know. I will not touch her before her body is stable. Otherwise it will damage her cultivation." Yang Dingtian, "The one who should say thank you is me." Wu Yuming turned his head and said, "Actually, you have a certain relationship with my netherworld sea. Do you want to consider bringing your wife and family to my netherworld sea as guests?" Wu Yuming's meaning was very clear. He wanted Yang Dingtian to bring his family and take refuge in the netherworld sea. This way, there would naturally be no danger, but it was equivalent to giving up the battle. "No need. Thank you for your kindness," Yang Dingtian said. Wu Yuming nodded and said, 2 days later, I will go to the headquarters of the Eastern Cloud Region Tiando League. I will represent the Vulture Palace and the Netherworld Sea to declare that we can fight, but we must not harm your life. I will definitely do what I have promised Miss Ling Wu." Yang Dingtian was stunned. He nodded and said, Wu Yuming said, "But I will dissuade Vulture from going to Cloud Heaven City. After all, she represents the Vulture Palace and the Netherworld Sea. Our neutral attitude cannot be affected." "All right," Yang Dingtian said. "However, I hope that you will only dissuade her and not completely stop her. Everything will be according to her own will and freedom." Wu Yuming hesitated for a moment before nodding and said, "All right, I agree. Then I will take my leave." Yang Dingtian said, "Goodbye," Wu Yuming said. Then, Yang Dingtian immediately executed a flying mystic skill and flew out of the Vulture Palace. At this moment, the little girl Vulture caught up with him and cried loudly, "Brother Tian, I will go back. I will definitely go back. Wait for me, wait for me." "All right, we will wait for you," Yang Dingtian said. Afterward, Yang Dingtian was accompanied by 2 Spirit Vulture Palace's disciples who were riding white cranes. He rode on a strange flying mount and flew outside. He flew past the 9 mountains, flew into the black fog, and flew out of the black fog. He had completely left the Vulture Palace. Of course, he once again saw countless Vulture Palace disciples throwing countless barbarians down to feed the black vultures. After flying out of the black fog, the 2 Vulture Palace disciples did not say a word and directly turned back to the Vulture Palace. They did not bid farewell. They just completely ignored him. Yang Dingtian kept flying and flying and flying. He flew away from the southern barbarian continent, leaving the endless mountains and green trees. He came to the seaside, the southern barbarian sea, the sea where all martial artists had disappeared. Yang Dingtian suddenly jumped down from his mount and directly jumped into the sea. Bang! His whole body suddenly felt cold. Yang Dingtian kept diving and diving and diving. He went down tens of meters, hundreds of meters, thousands of meters. He came to the bottom of the sea. He felt incomparably cold and a strong pressure, as if his entire soul was about to burst out. Yang Dingtian sat cross-legged on the bottom of the sea and slowly closed his eyes. "Master, let's begin. Whether or not we can revive you, and whether or not we can win this first battle against the evil ways, it will all depend on ourselves. I will do my best. Master, you can do your best too." Then, Yang Dingtian began a difficult and magical mental training. Chapter 462. The so-called soul separation art was to extract a person's soul from the host's body. It looked exactly the same as the evil soul art's soul snatcher. It was indeed almost the same, but there was an essential difference. The soul separation art extracted a complete and fresh soul. The evil soul art's soul devourer took the soul of a puppet that had lost its consciousness. The soul snatcher was a brutal and direct method of extracting a person's soul, but it did not extract their consciousness, will, or emotions. This kind of violence led to their souls being taken away and placed into the soul ring, directly turning them into brutal puppet fighting souls, without consciousness or emotions. In other words, the soul that was extracted by the soul snatcher was already considered dead. The body would become a walking corpse, and the soul would become a numb and cold energy body without any consciousness or emotions. In this way, Yang Dingtian did not need to go through the trouble of creating a puppet battle demon. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's soul ring already had enough powerful puppet battle souls. However, Yang Dingtian wanted to revive a master with consciousness and emotions. He wanted his master's soul to live in this world again. Therefore, he had to extract his master's soul completely from his own mind and guide it into the soul convergence art. However, there were 3 incomparably difficult aspects. First of all, how to completely strip his master's soul, emotions, and everything else out of his mind when he was stripping his master. Second, because his master's soul lived in his own mind, how to separate his master's soul from his own. Otherwise, it was very likely that not only would his master's soul be extracted, but his own soul would also be extracted. This was very, very likely. Back then, Yang Dingtian had turned Wu Xingwen into a walking corpse in this way. That bastard had extracted his own soul. One had to know that Dongfang Minmi's remnant soul was currently living in his own soul. Purely in terms of form, the two could be considered as one. It was not just a parasite hanging onto another species and pulling it out. Third, his master's soul was already extremely weak. He was already under the greatest protection in his mind, but he had no choice but to enter a period of deep sleep. If he moved even a little, he would immediately turn into ashes. It could be said that as long as it left his mind, there was a 100% chance that it would directly dissipate. It would not be able to enter soul convergence at all. It could be said that these 3 points were almost unsolvable. Of course, if Wuxia was willing to help, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. With his mental strength, he could easily enter Yang Dingtian's mind, wrap Dongfang Minmi's remnant soul, and then use the soul separation art to extract it. However, during the entire process, Dongfang Minmi's soul could still remain in a state of deep sleep. His incomparably powerful mental strength could completely protect his master's fragile soul fragments, and then easily inject them into soul gathering. As for the final resurrection procedure, it would be easier to directly use the art of rebirth. Reviving Dongfang Minmi was a difficult task for others, but for Wuxia, it was as simple as drinking a cup of water. However, he did not agree to it. He was not even willing to trade the soul separation art, just a scroll of the beginner 9th level art of rebirth, and he wanted to exchange it for Yang Dingtian's Despair City secret realm. He wasn't trying to cheat Yang Dingtian anymore. Instead, he was trying to kill Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian knew the soul assimilation art. Then, there was a 99% chance that he would extract his master's soul and his own soul. Then he would become a walking corpse. Deep in the sea, Yang Dingtian entered into meditation. He had the deepest and deepest understanding of the evil soul art. Because Duga Xiao had injected everything about the evil soul art into his mind, Yang Dingtian could confirm that the so-called soul assimilation art and the soul separation art should be from the same system. It was just that the soul separation art was much more advanced, and also much more difficult. As for the soul assimilation art, it was much simpler and more violent. Now, Yang Dingtian had to solve the first difficult problem. That was, as if his own soul and his master's soul were to be completely separated and independent. This sounded very simple, but in fact it was very, very difficult. The soul was a special kind of energy body, invisible and traceless. It could be said that at this moment, his master's soul was in the depths of Yang Dingtian's soul, completely fused together, and there was no way to separate them. Even if there was a way to separate them, at the moment of separation, his master's soul would turn into ashes. Because his master's soul fragment completely relied on Yang Dingtian's soul to provide energy and sustenance. Once separated, it would be completely destroyed. Think. Meditate. Young Dingtian had to find a way to successfully separate his master's soul from his own soul, without causing them to vanish into thin air. Was there a way? Yes. That was to separate the soul. Inseparable the form. His master's soul still lived in his consciousness, and physically could not be separated. However, from the spiritual world, from the virtual spiritual world, it began to separate. What was the way? Meditate. Yang Dingtian entered his own spiritual world, directly into the brain, and then found his master, Dongfang Minmi. It sounded very simple, but in reality, it was extremely difficult. How big was the spiritual world in a person's brain? It was completely unimaginable. It was even bigger than the world Yang Dingtian had been to at this time. Especially for Yang Dingtian, who had lived on Earth and in the chaotic world. He had read countless novels and movies in his mind. These things had formed a projection in his mind and become a part of his spiritual world. Therefore, the spiritual world in Yang Dingtian's mind might be millions or tens of millions of square kilometers. Some were clear, some were blurry, and some were repeated. But without a doubt, these all formed the spiritual world. Therefore, it was impossible to imagine how big it was. There was a saying that the memory capacity of a person's brain was tens of thousands, or even more terabytes. That's right, terabytes. Every terabyte was equivalent to 1024 gigabytes. A high definition was only 2 gigabytes. But there were hundreds of thousands of images inside. From this, one could imagine how big a person's spiritual world was. Then, wanting to find the parasitic Dongfang Minmi's soul in the spiritual world was equivalent to looking for a person hiding and sleeping in a land of millions of square kilometers. How difficult was that? It was unimaginable. How long would a normal search take? 1 foot at a time, 1 meter at a time. It would take at least tens of thousands of years. However, how much time could Yang Dingtian have? Of course, why didn't he awaken his master's soul directly? Wouldn't he be able to find it directly? That's right, he could find it after awakening it. But after awakening his master's divine sense, his soul fragments were scattered. Because the composition of the human brain was different, each place was responsible for different things. Therefore, if his master wanted to communicate with Yang Dingtian, he had to be scattered in various parts. It was also because of this that his master's soul was still rapidly dissipating in Yang Dingtian's mind. Because these soul fragments were scattered, a lot of them would be lost every time. Therefore, his master had no choice but to sleep and let all the soul fragments gather together. Moreover, when Yang Dingtian extracted his master's soul, he also needed it to be completely gathered together. Therefore, during the entire process, his master's soul had to be in a sleeping state. Therefore, the first step to reviving his master was for Yang Dingtian to enter his own spiritual world and find his master's sleeping soul. Where was his master's soul sleeping in Yang Dingtian's spiritual world? Yang Dingtian could only bet and guess. But no matter what, he needed a lot of time to find it. It might take a few months, a few years, or even longer. However, reality gave Yang Dingtian no more than 3 or 4 days at most. Once the Tiando League meeting ended, Qin Shiqi and Ning Wuming's army would set off to sweep through Cloud Sky City. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had to enter an extremely deep level of meditation. The deeper the level of meditation, the slower time would be. The first level, the second level, the third level, the fourth level, the fifth level. Every time, the speed of time would be several times slower. Therefore, when one entered a deep level of meditation, a few decades inside might be equivalent to a few hours in the real world. Of course, when one entered a deep level of meditation, there would be a very terrifying thing. That was being unable to wake up and being stuck in the cracks of the spiritual world. There were gaps in a person's memory, so the spiritual world was definitely not smooth and complete. In a certain memory, a scene that did not belong to the same world would be inserted. Once one entered this kind of mistake, they would never be able to get out. This was equivalent to a bug in this world, and there was a dead end everywhere. These theories of the spiritual world were still very profound on Earth, and there were only related concepts. However, in the chaotic world, there was a whole set of theories. Although there were very few spiritual masters in this world, The research in the spiritual domain was much more advanced than on Earth. There were also many so-called meditation scrolls that could enter one's own spiritual world. Young Dingtian was about to begin the first step of reviving his master, which was to enter meditation and find his sleeping master's soul in the spiritual world. Entering the spatial ring, Yang Dingtian chose a spiritual scroll. Ningning was a spiritual master, so there were many meditation scrolls inside. And there were even 9th grade spiritual scrolls. Was it true that the higher the grade of the spiritual scroll, the higher the grade? Of course it was, because the higher the grade, the deeper the level of meditation, which meant that Yang Dingtian had enough time to find his master's sleeping soul in his own brain. However, the higher the grade of the spiritual scroll, the more realistic the spiritual world would be, and the scenes in the deepest part of the memory would be completely dug out. The more realistic the spiritual world, the more bugs and cracks there would be, and the easier it would be to be forever stuck in the cracks and completely lost. After struggling and hesitating, Yang Dingtian didn't choose the highest grade scroll. Instead, he chose an 8th grade beginner's meditation scroll. The blurrier the spiritual world, the less dangerous it would be, but the less time it would take. Holding the spiritual scroll in his hand, Yang Dingtian took a deep breath. What was about to happen next was Yang Dingtian's craziest and most dangerous journey, because no one could wake him up. There was only one condition for waking up, and that was to wake himself up once he found his master's sleeping soul. If he could not find his master, then Yang Dingtian would always be immersed in meditation. Then perhaps half a month, or even a few months would pass. By the time he woke up, Cloud Sky City would have already been reduced to ashes. Meditation was always something that only high-level spiritual masters could play with. There were endless traps and cracks in it, and there was also a state of perpetual searching without reaching one's goal. For ordinary people, meditation was simply too dangerous. And the craziest thing was, Yang Dingtian came up with this method of reviving his master himself, but there was no theoretical support at all, and no one could guarantee that it would succeed. It was just something that Yang Dingtian came up with himself, and there was no spiritual master to prove that it was feasible. If Wuxia knew about Yang Dingtian's method, he would be completely shocked by Yang Dingtian's craziness and recklessness. Ordinary people entering the meditation world were purely seeking death. There were endless cracks in it, and there was simply no way to escape. Of course, Yang Dingtian did not know much about this point. The ignorant were fearless. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath, and then entered a mystical qi into the 8th grade meditation scroll in his hand. In an instant, the special energy of the meditation scroll instantly made Yang Dingtian fall into a deep sleep. It was like passing through a space-time tunnel, constantly shuttling. All the rotating streams of light stilled, forming a complete picture. Yang Dingtian entered the depths of his own spiritual world. At this moment he was in the depths of the sea. That's right, it was the depths of the sea of the southern barbarian continent, and the environment was exactly the same as his reality, because where he was at the moment before meditation, when he entered the spiritual world, he was also at this place. Next, Yang Dingtian wanted to leave here and find the sleeping Dongfang Minmi in the spiritual world. Yang Dingtian began to paddle up and up. Swoosh! He suddenly rushed out of the water. Not far away was the 100,000 mountains of the southern barbarian continent, and surrounding it was the vast sea. At this moment, that strange mount was still hovering on the surface of the sea. Yang Dingtian suddenly jumped up, sat on that flying mount, and began to rise into the air. Where was the place where his master was sleeping? He could only gamble. In the cave in the world of ice and snow, at the place where he met Yang Dingtian. Of course, he was not sure at all. His master's divine sense could still be at home in the Yin-Yang school. Because, perhaps he was full of nostalgia for his home, so he chose to sleep at home. However, Yang Dingtian had to choose one. Then he chose the cave in the world of ice and snow. After confirming the direction, Yang Dingtian rode the flying mount and flew towards the northeast. In the world of ice and snow, thousands of miles of glaciers, in the northeast of Zhongzhou, Yang Dingtian continued to fly towards the northeast. Brother Tian, save me, save me. Suddenly, Vulture's cries came from behind. Then, there was Wu Yoming's cold laughter. Then, there was Vulture's blood-curdling screams. Of course, all of this was fake. It was only the projection of Yang Dingtian's emotions. In reality, Wu Yuming was very likely a modest gentleman and would never hurt Vulture. But subconsciously, Yang Dingtian was afraid that such a thing would happen. Yang Dingtian ignored it and did not even look back, because these were all part of the countless spiritual traps. Once he saw it, or even rushed up, he would enter a chaotic emotional world, which could cause the surrounding spiritual world to be distorted. At that time, he would never be able to come out. Yang Dingtian continued to fly and fly. Below, it was completely the boundless sea. This was very advantageous, because the boundless sea looked very similar, and could be pieced together with the same image. The simpler the image, the safer it was, and the less likely there was a bug. Finally, after flying through thousands of miles of sea, he arrived at Nanzhongzhou. Yang Dingtian continued to fly higher and higher. At this moment, he was still considered safe, because the Nanzhongzhou that he saw was seen from a very high place. It was almost a static and blurry image. Therefore, he was still safe. After flying over Nanzhongzhou, he crossed the sea and arrived at Great Zhongzhou. Yang Dingtian had been to the ground here before, so there was a clear image. Ah! Suddenly, Ling Wu's blood-curdling screams came from the ground. Then, he saw the Divine Weapons Villa's young master was frantically tearing Ling Wu's clothes and was about to humiliate her. Yang Dingtian used a huge amount of willpower and did not lower his head to look, and directly flew over. Because this was also a spiritual trap. The worries in reality were projected into the spiritual world and formed into a trap. Yang Dingtian continued to fly. He flew away from Great Zhongzhou and continued to arrive at the surface of the sea. Next, the most dangerous moment was about to arrive. Because from here to the world of ice and snow, Yang Dingtian had never been there before. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's spiritual world was completely blank, and there was no concrete image. Of course, it didn't matter if it didn't exist at all. The most frightening thing was that Yang Dingtian's brain automatically filled in the gaps. He tried to use the other images in his memory to construct this blank world. That was extremely unreasonable, but it was also a fact that would definitely happen. Once his mind was slightly confused, and he filled in this blank world with an absolutely unreasonable image, then everything would be over. For example, he could fill in a certain image from Earth into this blank world. If Yang Dingtian rushed in, then he would never be able to come out, and could only spin in that wrong image forever. Of course, it could also be said that he might as well not construct it, and just go straight to the vast ocean, and just stay like this until the world of ice and snow. This was even more impossible, because he clearly knew in his mind that he would have to pass through northern Zhongzhou, and even the mysterious sky sect of Yingzhou Midway. Once it was a vast ocean, then it meant that this world was not real. It meant that he had completely entered the vast ocean, and would spin in circles forever, and would never be able to come out. Taking a deep breath, Yang Dingtian gathered all his spirit, and entered the fantasy of northern Zhongzhou. This was an extremely difficult and complicated matter. First of all, the distance had to be right. From Great Zhongzhou to northern Zhongzhou, how long would it take to cross the ocean? It had to be right. Secondly, the approximate area of northern Zhongzhou had to be right. The specific image could be blurred. However, he had to focus all his attention here. He could not transfer the image of other places to northern Zhongzhou. For example, Yang Dingtian moved the image of Sky Demon City to northern Zhongzhou because he missed Dongfang Minmi. Then it would be completely over. He would directly rush into the world of Sky Demon City, but Sky Demon City was not here. He could not find a way out even if he wanted to, because the brain was absolutely real, absolutely strict, and absolutely not allowed to lie. Yang Dingtian used all his spirit to imagine northern Zhongzhou. He used all his knowledge to construct the image of northern Zhongzhou. That's right, this was the distance. It was 2,300 miles away from Great Zhongzhou. In front, northern Zhongzhou could already be vaguely seen. Northern Zhongzhou was still moist, but it was already a relatively cold world. Towards the south, there was still a lot of greenery, but towards the north, one could already see traces of snow. This was the world constructed by Yang Dingtian. It could be illusory, but it had to be logical. Yang Dingtian flew all the way, passing by northern Zhongzhou below. This was the northern Zhongzhou that Yang Dingtian had constructed in his mind. There could not be any mistakes, no fatal bugs. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's mind was working at high speed. He had to be absolutely focused, not even a little bit, otherwise, everything would be over. Suddenly, the image of Dongfang Bingling suddenly flashed and imprinted on the image of northern Zhongzhou. Yang Dingtian's heart jumped. No, please don't, please don't. Then, the image of northern Zhongzhou started to distort and spin. Yang Dingtian's heart was screaming. It's over, it's over. Dongfang Bingling's face became clearer and clearer. The image of northern Zhongzhou became more and more distorted and blurred. It's over, it's completely over. The bone-deep longing for Dongfang Bingling and the fear of the future caused the image of Dongfang Bingling to directly insert itself into Yang Dingtian's thoughts, instantly disrupting his entire plan. It's over, everything is over. The world around Yang Dingtian became more and more blurred and distorted. Only Dongfang Bingling's face became clearer and clearer. Soon, he would be completely lost and never wake up. Most of the time, people could not control their own minds. The more you tried not to think about something, the more you would think about it. Previously, when Yang Dingtian was on the surface of the southern barbarian continent, he could ignore the cries of the vulture. It was fine even if he was distracted, because that image truly existed in Yang Dingtian's mind. He did not need to waste his energy to construct it. It was the same for Ling Wu in northern Zhongzhou. However, in northern Zhongzhou, Yang Dingtian was completely unfamiliar. He had to construct this image wholeheartedly. Once he was disturbed, he would be completely lost. It's over, it's over. The world around him had already become a blur. Everything around him had already become a blur of nothingness. This place was more or less an illusory realm. Only Dongfang Bingling's face became clearer and clearer. Kaka. Scared. Suddenly, Bao Bao's voice resounded in Yang Dingtian's mind. It was silly and crisp. Bao Bao's laughter could not be heard clearly. This voice was instantly like the sound of nature. Bang! Dongfang Bingling's face was instantly shattered and disappeared without a trace. After that, the world around him gradually became clear. The entire northern Zhongzhou was constructed again. Bao Bao, Daddy loves you, Yang Dingtian muttered to himself. Once Yang Dingtian was distracted because of Dongfang Bingling, it was practically unsolvable. The more you did not think about it, the more you would think about it. The more you suppressed it, the more it would rebound. Humans simply could not control their own minds. At this moment, his love for Bao Bao suddenly burst forth and directly shattered his distraction of Dongfang Bingling. Even though Bao Bao did not know anything, at this moment he saved Yang Dingtian. Finally, they flew over northern Zhongzhou. Yang Dingtian was almost exhausted. The northern Zhongzhou behind him was getting further and further away. At this moment, only a vague shadow was needed in his mind. Fortunately, they were flying towards the northeast and not the north. Therefore, they only needed to fly diagonally across northern Zhongzhou for about 100 miles. Otherwise, Yang Dingtian would not be able to withstand the thousands of miles of northern Zhongzhou. He really could not construct a few thousand miles of northern Zhongzhou. This was because this construction was completely virtual, but it had to be absolutely real and absolutely logical. The difficulty of not using a scene with wrong logic was extremely high. It could be said that if Yang Dingtian were to do it again, it would definitely be impossible. His mind could only construct a few hundred miles. Any more and he would have to repeat it completely. Once he repeated it, his mind would tell him that it was not real, and he would be completely lost. The spiritual world had to be logical and real. Yang Dingtian continued to fly. Next, there was another challenge, and that was Immortal Abode Island. Immortal Abode Island, where the Xiantian sect was located. It was here. Yang Dingtian instantly gathered all his thoughts and constructed a logical Immortal Abode Island Xiantian sect that could deceive his mind. But soon, Yang Dingtian realized that it was just a false alarm. He did not need to pass by Immortal Abode Island. He just brushed past it. A few hundred miles of Immortal Abode Island was just a glimpse from afar. However, he still had to be very careful. He must not put the scene of Inyang School into his mind. Even though it was just a flash, Yang Dingtian was still fully focused. He constructed a realistic Immortal Abode Island Xiantian sect in his mind. Immortal Abode Island was over. Yang Dingtian heaved a sigh of relief. The most dangerous time was over. Next was the boundless sea. At the end of the sea was a world of ice and snow. It was the place where Yang Dingtian first met Yin Yan. Yang Dingtian had a clear memory of these scenes. He would not be confused, and the danger was not great. More than 10 hours later, Yang Dingtian flew tens of thousands of miles. Midway, he rested a few times because his mount needed to rest. Of course, this kind of rest was very dangerous. Yang Dingtian had to build a brand new island. This island could not be any real island that he had experienced before. Otherwise, he would immediately be brought to that island, and the logic of the entire space would be completely chaotic. Moreover, he could not casually build a fake island that was full of beaches, because that would not be logical. He had to build an island that fit the geographical illusion. Then he let his mount rest on it. After Yang Dingtian fed it a pill, he continued to fly. Finally, he flew to the world of ice and snow. He was about to reach the place where he met Yin Yan. Suddenly, the sound of hurried horse hooves came from below. Then, he saw a man and a horse galloping from the north to the south. Looking carefully, it was actually Shiman Wuya. Then, a scene appeared in the distance. It was the first time Yin Yan met Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian unintentionally attacked her chest, and then she attacked Yang Dingtian with her palm. Shiman Wuya came from the north all the way to the south. He did not directly rush to the place where Yin Yan was. Instead, he first took a detour from the north to the south, and then rushed over quickly along the road from the south. Of course, all of this was not real. It was just Yang Dingtian's subconscious. Yang Dingtian was shocked. Had he fallen into a dead end? Why did he not directly rush over, but first take a detour from the north to the south, and then come over? Danger, danger, danger! Yang Dingtian screamed in his heart. He could not get into a dead end, and he could not be taken away by the subconscious. Otherwise, he would be completely finished. His thoughts would be taken to a few years ago, and he would enter another time and space. Then, he would be completely finished. Yang Dingtian let out an angry roar. He raised his fist and smashed it towards his own head. Immediately, Yang Dingtian fainted. Finally, Yang Dingtian saved himself again. After an unknown period of time. Bang! Suddenly, Yang Dingtian fell from the sky and was awakened. Because this mount directly threw Yang Dingtian down. It had already entered the 10,000 miles glacier. It was too cold, and it could not stand it. After throwing Yang Dingtian down, it directly flew away. Danger, danger, danger! Yang Dingtian woke up in an instant. He immediately turned around and looked for a reference point. If he did not find a reference point immediately, he did not know how far he had flown, or how long he had been unconscious. Then, he would completely lose the concept of distance, and he would never be able to find that cave. Fortunately, Yang Dingtian found a reference point in the first place. Dozens of miles behind him was that strange forest. Yang Dingtian had once laid under that tree to rest. There was no problem. Once he found a reference point, he could calculate the specific coordinates and the specific distance. Then, Yang Dingtian directly operated his profound qi and continued to fly in the northwest direction. That's right. The cave where his master was imprisoned was in the northwest direction, about 7,356 miles away. Yang Dingtian flew at a constant speed and moved forward at a constant speed. At this time, the sky was clear and unobstructed. Yang Dingtian kept flying and flying. After flying for 4,000 miles, his profound qi was exhausted. Landing on the ground, Yang Dingtian began to close his eyes and adjust his breathing, inhaling and exhaling. However, when his profound qi was restored to full, something bad happened. Dark clouds rolled, the wind whistled and the snow swirled. Of course, Yang Dingtian was no longer afraid of the wind and snow. However, the wind would change Yang Dingtian's speed and direction, and Yang Dingtian found it difficult to calculate the accurate data. Once there was a mistake, the error would exceed the range of Yang Dingtian's vision. Then, he would be completely lost and would never be able to find that cave. Yang Dingtian immediately decided to continue adjusting his breathing, inhaling and exhaling. More than 10 hours later, Yang Dingtian was buried in snow. Finally, the snow stopped. Yang Dingtian continued to fly in the air. 10 hours later, Yang Dingtian arrived at his destination, the cave. Of course, this was only the cave that Yang Dingtian thought it was. Once there was a slight error in the calculation, the cave would not be here. At this time, it looked like there was ice and snow everywhere. It was plain, and there was nothing unusual. Yang Dingtian took out his artifact sword and started to dig continuously. 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, 400 meters, 1,000 meters. Yang Dingtian dug it out. That's right, it was that cave. The surrounding crystal-like cave was less than 100 square meters. However, at this time, it had become several times larger and was no longer smooth, because his master had once exploded his sea of qi and blown up this cave. However, there was no sign of Dongfang Minmi in the cave. Of course not, because in his memory, his master had already exploded and turned into ashes. Yang Dingtian turned around abruptly and suddenly saw a faint voice in a recessed cave. It was his master Dongfang Minmi. It was not a real person but a faint shadow. He was adjusting his breathing with his eyes closed and was sleeping. The shadow was very faint and almost disappeared. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian burst into tears. He succeeded. He succeeded. No one taught him what to do. He just came up with a crazy method and supported this resurrection method according to his own theory. Then he crazily entered the most dangerous meditation world. At least two fatal crises. At least two dangerous situations where he was completely lost. There were countless bugs and traps along the way. However, Yang Dingtian ran for tens of thousands of miles and finally came to the world of ice and snow from the southern barbarian continent. He was betting that his master was here and not in the Yinyang school. He bet right. In front of his master's shadow, Yang Dingtian slowly knelt down and said, "I have completed the most difficult step. Master, we do not rely on anyone else, we rely on ourselves. Your disciple will rely on his own wisdom and ability to resurrect you. Master, I will wait for you in the real world." Chapter 463. After tens of thousands of miles of travel, Yang Dingtian finally found the sleeping Dongfang Minmi in the meditation world of his brain. At this moment, Yang Dingtian only needed to lightly touch his master's soul, and he would be able to wake up. Moreover, the next time he entered meditation, he would directly appear in front of his master's soul. However, Yang Dingtian did not want to go out for the time being. The most important first step had been completed. Yang Dingtian had successfully separated his soul from his master's soul in the meditation world. Moreover, the sleeping master's soul was a complete body. Next, he had to think about the most important second step, how to extract his master's soul. A complete extraction. And during the extraction process, there would be absolutely no damage. He did not know the soul separation art. He only knew the evil soul art's soul absorption, the most violent extraction. It would completely destroy the consciousness and emotions in the soul, directly turning it into a puppet battle soul like a walking corpse. This was definitely not what he wanted. Therefore, at this moment, the second step played a decisive role. If the second step was completed, then his master's resurrection would be 80% complete, or even 90% complete. However, the most difficult part was the second step. Yang Dingtian sat in front of his master and began to think again. What should he do? What should he do? How could he not destroy the emotions and consciousness when extracting the soul? Immediately, Yang Dingtian began to deeply immerse himself in the evil soul art's soul absorption. He broke down the method of soul absorption bit by bit and studied it. Once again, Yang Dingtian began to deeply analyze the soul absorption. The key point of the analysis was why the soul absorption would destroy the consciousness and emotions when extracting the soul. The evil soul art was very fast to cultivate. Because anyone could cultivate, The strength of the power was only related to the martial arts talent. Cultivators did not need to think about the principle. The truly powerful, the truly profound as the sea, was the person who wrote the evil soul art. It was like a piece of software. Many people only needed to learn how to use it. As for the writing of the software, that was the job of the engineers. What Yang Dingtian needed to do now was to enter the world of the coding engineer and decode the soul catcher bit by bit. He needed to completely understand the theory behind it. Without a doubt, this was an extremely complicated and difficult process. Yang Dingtian closed his eyes and entered the theoretical world of soul catchers. There was no doubt that if this evil soul art could be written down, it would be millions or even tens of millions of codes. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had to conduct his research in the meditation world. In the real world, it would take at least a few months to study it thoroughly. Fortunately, Du Xiao was amazing. After thoroughly understanding the entire evil soul art, he poured all the fragments and details into Yang Dingtian's mind, allowing Yang Dingtian to easily read it. Reading paragraph by paragraph. This thing was really too difficult. That was because it was neither text nor code. It was just a bunch of energy circulation methods. However, Yang Dingtian was shocked to find out. This soul catcher art, in fact, only had the two most basic information structures, yin and yang. This was very similar to the computers on Earth. At the bottom of the computer, there were only 0 and 1. And the evil soul art, using the two types of information, yin and yang, to write an incomparably long and complicated cultivation scroll. It was really very similar to the computer software on Earth. Yang Dingtian trembled. He seemed to have touched the top secret of this world, touched the realm of this world that was close to God. Then, Yang Dingtian was completely convinced. The secret scripture writers of the ancient times must have completed it in the depths of the meditation world. Otherwise, this task would require an extremely long time. Yang Dingtian did some calculations and found out that just the evil soul art's soul assimilating art was made up of hundreds of millions of yin and yang information. In the real world, it would take at least n years to write, or even more than 100 years. Because this was not writing a novel, it was a secret scripture with a strong logical relationship. To be honest, after Yang Dingtian entered the world of the secret scripture, he really almost forgot his purpose. He really seemed to have entered the most wonderful world. He felt as if he had touched the deepest part of the martial arts civilization of the chaos world, and touched the foundation and principle of the entire martial arts civilization. It could even be said that once Yang Dingtian thoroughly understood, he might be able to modify some of the secret scripture scrolls, or even write it himself. Of course, at this time, it was still very, very far away. The world of the secret scripture was like a vast ocean, and what Yang Dingtian learned was only a drop in the ocean. However, Yang Dingtian had an advantage. That was his computer knowledge was quite solid. In the university, his second major was computer science. He could even write some programs on his own. Of course, the computer program of Earth and the martial arts civilization of the chaos world were still very different. However, the fundamental was the same, so the principle would be the same. Yang Dingtian had never imagined that the most basic foundation of the martial arts civilization was actually yin and yang, which was equivalent to 0 and 1. He was completely immersed in the primitive martial arts civilization, almost unable to extricate himself. He was completely intoxicated, tirelessly intercepting a section of the secret scripture code, and then infiltrating it to study. In this way, in the deep meditation world, Yang Dingtian did not sleep or rest, constantly blinking, crazily absorbing the nutrition of the martial arts civilization, and crazily analyzing each section of the soul assimilating formula. Then Yang Dingtian was completely stunned. He was sure that he had got a key. He was sure that he had grasped the highest level of the martial arts civilization of this world. He was sure that he had touched the top secret of the martial arts civilization of this world. What he got would be far more than the resurrection of Dongfang Minmi himself. He felt that he had gotten the most precious and powerful thing in history. If Wuxia knew, he would be completely shocked. He would definitely regret why he did not personally resurrect Dongfang Minmi. Because in this world, there were extremely few people who had truly touched the foundation of the martial arts civilization. And everyone, once they touched the most fundamental and deepest theory of the martial arts civilization, that meant that he had suddenly broken through some kind of cage and directly held a magical key. This meant that he would definitely break through a certain realm. The heavenly punishment that spanned across all the martial artists in this world would be instantly passed through. Why did this world for countless years not produce a true saint? Why were only Wu Yu, Wolingzi, and Nihility Piaoling able to cross the huge heavenly punishment of the great grandmaster and reach a new realm? Why were some people clearly very talented, but even if they were more than 100 years old and more than 200 years old, they could only be in the position of great grandmaster and could not cross over? Because they did not touch the deepest level of the martial arts civilization. They did not touch this so-called divine realm. Including Dongfang Minmi, Zhu Qingzhu, and Shimen Wuya, they did not touch this realm. As for the half-step Saint Wolingzi and Wu Yu, they only touched this divine realm and did not master it. Dongfang Minmi and the others did not even know that this realm existed. There was one person who was incomparably obsessed with this realm and carried out crazy research. That person was the great demon Duga Xiao. Of course, now it seemed that he was only known as a demon. His heart was incomparably sensitive and even pure. He carried out incomparably crazy research on the evil soul art. He broke through the most superficial layer, which was that the martial arts civilization was composed of two kinds of information, yin and yang. However, because of the limitations of his thinking, and because the time was too short, he was still unable to understand this yin and yang information and what it meant. He was still unable to detoxify it. For some reason, he instilled all this information into Yang Dingtian's mind. Then, this most difficult and mysterious part of the martial arts civilization was nothing to Yang Dingtian. The people of this world could almost never understand the yin and yang information in the martial arts civilization. To be precise, it was a blue light and a red light. What did these combinations mean? However, Yang Dingtian, who came from Earth and was proficient in computer theory, could easily understand and interpret it. Yang Dingtian faintly felt that he had obtained an incomparably huge treasure. The significance of this treasure was even greater than the resurrection of his master. Dugu Zhao's unintentional planting and Wolingzi's coercion actually allowed Yang Dingtian to touch the deepest divine realm of this martial arts civilization. If Wolingzi knew, he would definitely vomit blood in anger. Now Yang Dingtian even faintly felt that. If he could obtain the scroll of the soul-devouring demonic art, he could even unlock the secret of soul-devouring. Once the secret of soul-devouring was unlocked, what did it mean? It meant that he could defeat the evil spirit. He could revive Dongfang Bingling, he could revive Nihility Piaoling. Thinking of this, Yang Dingtian's spirit even began to tremble. It was really unintentional, or it was destined by the heavens. Wolingzi's suppression and the Vulture Palace's encounter had actually allowed him to obtain the most precious thing, something that could even completely change this world. Previously, he had completely grasped the truth of the world, revived Bing Ling, and completely destroyed evil ways. Yang Dingtian could only do it with all his might, without any confidence at all. But now, he felt as if he had obtained a key, the key to change this world, subvert this world, and completely reverse the situation of this world. He really had to thank Duga Xiao. Without him, Yang Dingtian would never have touched this realm. He even had to thank Wolingzi's suppression. If it were not for his indifference and disregard, Yang Dingtian would not have to decipher the soul-devouring demonic art in the meditation world. What he lost at the swings, he gained at the roundabouts. Misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. In the following time, Yang Dingtian frantically detoxified the soul-devouring demonic art, the arrangement of yin and yang information, and the deepest principles and theories within. He did not sleep or rest, completely forgetting the time. Fortunately, he was in the depths of the meditation world. Otherwise, who knew how long it would have been lost? Time continued to pass, and Yang Dingtian was still sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. One day, he did not know how much time had passed. Suddenly, young Dingtian opened his eyes. Suddenly, a brilliant and wise light flashed in his eyes. He let out a long breath. In an unknown period of time, young Dingtian had almost completely deciphered the entire soul-devouring demonic art and had a clear understanding. The bad news was that with his current ability, it was still very difficult to transform the soul-devouring demonic art into the soul separation technique. Of course, this was for sure. If young Dingtian could achieve it, it meant that he could write a superior 9th-grade spirit scroll. This was impossible. Young Dingtian still had to study the divine realm of the martial arts civilization for a long time. In fact, he clearly knew that the best and most profound research object was the pig-slaying swordsmanship. He was about to strive for the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. He believed that after studying this scroll, young Dingtian's understanding of the divine realm would advance by leaps and bounds. But the good news was that young Dingtian knew why the soul-devouring demonic art would directly destroy consciousness and emotions when extracting the soul. Because the soul was a kind of energy body, consciousness and emotions were also a kind of energy body. The soul was relatively pure and basic, and consciousness and emotions were extremely complicated, and also extremely sensitive. The energy forms of the two were completely different. However, they were completely fused together and could not be separated at all. Then the moment the soul left the brain, the soul body would not dissipate. And consciousness and emotions, after losing the sustenance of the brain, would instantly disappear without a trace. Therefore, it was not that the soul-devouring demonic art did not extract consciousness and emotions, but it destroyed them the moment they were extracted. The so-called soul separation technique was more advanced and powerful. It could also protect the extremely sensitive consciousness and emotions during the process of extracting the soul. Then, what young Dingtian needed to do was to completely protect his consciousness and emotions during the process of extracting his master's soul, so that they would not completely dissipate. How to do it? It was very difficult, and almost impossible. In fact, it was completely impossible, unless there was the soul separation technique. But young Dingtian had an almost crazy and almost genius idea. That was to combine reality and illusion, connect reality and the spiritual world, lead the energy of the real world into the spiritual world. To put it more directly, it was to lead the countless resentful spirits of the million-spirit demon fire into young Dingtian's meditation world. Then, let these resentful spirits wrap his master's entire soul body, and then use the soul-devouring demonic art to directly extract his master's soul. In an instant, young Dingtian directly woke up and returned to the real world. Then, he led his master's soul body, which was included in the million-spirit demon fire, from his fingers to the soul convergence technique. That's right, it was an extremely crazy idea. There was no theory to support it, and no one had tried it before. Everything was just entrusted to young Dingtian's crazy fantasy. It was an extremely crazy adventure. Wuxia was a peerless scholar, but it was impossible for him to have such a crazy genius idea. If he knew, he would definitely be completely shocked. Lead the energy of the real world into the spiritual world. It could be said that the martial artists of this world did not even dare to think about it, let alone try it. The spiritual world was extremely fragile and sensitive. Once the energy of the real world was introduced, the consequences would be unimaginable. At this time, young Dingtian, who had just touched the divine realm, was already somewhat similar to a mad scientist. He no longer cared about life and death, and did not care about success or failure. He only wanted to try. No matter how dangerous and crazy it was, he would still try. Lead the countless resentful spirits of the million-spirit demon fire into the meditation world. First of all, the meditation world was pure energy and pure spirit. Therefore, the energy introduced must not have any lethality, not even a little bit. Just like the computer storage center, the CPU was the core. The tiniest bit of electric current would completely destroy everything. Therefore, the countless resentful spirits could not have any energy. They could not be yin or yang. They had to be absolutely zero, and they had to be primal chaos energy. This was simply impossible for others. However, for Yang Dingtian, it was effortless. The yin-yang qi transformation technique could completely extract any attribute from the energy, turning the yin and yang energy into primal chaos energy and pure energy. Yang Dingtian sat cross-legged again and looked at his master's soul. Master, I have been forced into a dead end. Therefore, I have no choice but to let you and me take the craziest adventure, the craziest attempt. Then, in the extremely fragile and pure meditation world, Yang Dingtian began to try to summon the million-spirit demon fire. He began to use the yin-yang qi transformation technique to completely dissolve the energy of the million-spirit demon fire, turning it into pure energy with no attribute. Immediately, the flame circulated in Yang Dingtian's xian veins. Gradually, there was no yin and yang energy left, and there was no lethality. Only the purest resentful spirits and an almost colorless flame were left. Next, Yang Dingtian was about to face the craziest adventure. He had to bring this elemental xian flame, with countless resentful spirits, into the meditation world. It was an extreme adventure, an extreme madness. Just in case there was a slight mistake, or a slight discrepancy with Yang Dingtian's theory, this little bit of xian flame would directly destroy Yang Dingtian's entire mental world. It would instantly scatter Yang Dingtian's soul, and turn Yang Dingtian into a walking corpse. No one had ever done such a thing. No one had ever attempted such a thing, bringing the energy of reality into the mental world, into the meditation world. Fight! I have nowhere to go. As for coming back from the dead, geniuses will always be lunatics. The truth of the world is in the hands of the minority. Once you succeed, you can strategically despise any martial artist in the world. Once you succeed, you will have done something that no one in the world has ever done. It is a real breakthrough from zero. It is an absolute miracle. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian suddenly summoned. A colorless flame, vaguely white, floated between Yang Dingtian's fingers in the meditation world. Boom! Yang Dingtian's mental world, which was almost tens of millions of square kilometers, began to violently distort and tremble, as if everything was going to turn into ashes, as if everything was going to be completely destroyed. It was as if a hand had reached into the earth's sky from the depths of the universe. It was subversive and destructive. Yang Dingtian was not afraid at all. He just quietly waited for the result. Silence or destruction. It was silence. The mental world was distorted and shook. It gradually became quiet again, because this flame was elemental and had zero attack energy. It was absolutely pure. Yang Dingtian succeeded. He had completed a miracle. He had brought the energy of reality into the mental world. He had done something 100 times greater than resurrecting Dongfang Minmi. Master, we succeeded. Yang Dingtian said lightly. The most difficult, genius and crazy process had passed. Next, the resurrection of his master had become a foregone conclusion. Chapter 464. Yang Dingtian placed this flame without any attributes in front of him. In fact, it was no longer a flame. It was formed by countless resentful spirits of the billion-spirit demonic flame. Tens of millions of resentful spirits danced, forming the appearance of a colorless flame. It was beautiful pale, but it made people tremble. Yang Dingtian blew gently. Suddenly, countless resentful spirits wrapped around his master's soul, forming an absolutely stable and safe energy environment. For a moment, his master Dongfang Minmi's body of light rose like a ball of flame. Yang Dingtian silently chanted the soul assimilation art. Suddenly, the whole cave was filled with ghostly wails and howls. The whole space was filled with gusts of cold wind and mottled ghosts. Phew! His master's soul was like a ball of flame, gently being extracted. There was no expression of pain, no fear of being torn apart. Previously, every time he used the soul assimilation art to extract a puppet's soul, it would be distorted, screaming, and incomparably painful. This was all caused by stripping and destroying one's emotions and consciousness while one was still alive. At this moment, when Yang Dingtian executed the soul-snatching technique, Dongfang Minmi's soul didn't even move a little bit, let alone roaring and screaming. In fact, he wasn't even awake and was still in a deep sleep. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Just like that, there was no sound. His master's soul was completely extracted from the depths of Yang Dingtian's mind and soul. It turned back into a ball of flame, floating in Yang Dingtian's palm. Because his master's soul was wrapped in the billion-spirit demonic flame, it still looked like a ball of flame after being extracted by the soul assimilation art. However, if one looked carefully, there was a small light shadow in the center of this flame. This was Dongfang Minmi's soul light shadow. At this time, he was still in a deep sleep, sleeping in Yang Dingtian's palm. Yang Dingtian didn't know that he had done another historical thing. There was actually someone who could extract another soul from his own soul without hurting himself. Enter the meditation world, find the sleeping soul, and then pull it out. This was an extremely crazy method, not to mention that no one had tried it before. Even the spiritual masters in this world didn't dare to think about it. Only Yang Dingtian, who was forced into a dead end, would be able to survive after being placed in a situation of death. It was also good that the ignorant were fearless. He came up with the craziest and most genius idea. Then he succeeded even more crazily. Now Yang Dingtian could wake up. In reality, Yang Dingtian, who was sitting cross-legged at the bottom of the sea, suddenly opened his eyes slightly. His right hand gently, suddenly a ball of flame, floating in his palm. Yes, in the meditation world, his master's soul was wrapped in the billion-spirit demonic flame, floating in his palm. In reality, this flame demonic flame Su of the real world. This was the place of course of time. He used a type of non-elemental energy to directly connect the real world and the spiritual world. For nearly 10,000 years, no one in the chaotic world had ever accomplished this grand vision. However, Yang Dingtian achieved it. Looking at the flame floating in his palm, he took a closer look. His master, Dongfang Minmi's shadow, was still wrapped in the flame, very safe, very peaceful, still sleeping. Yang Dingtian succeeded, even without the soul separation technique. Under Yang Dingtian's crazy ideas, he succeeded. Without anyone's guidance, theoretical support, or help, Yang Dingtian, who was not even a spiritual master, conceived a crazy theoretical program and experienced several fatal dangers. In his mind, he experienced a mysterious and crazy spiritual journey. Then, he completed this task that was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Yang Dingtian took out spirit condensing shadow from his spatial ring. Spirit condensing shadow. This was a type of spirit energy without an owner. Any broken soul, even if it only had a little bit of consciousness, as long as it entered spirit condensing shadow, it would instantly recover all its vitality. This was because spirit condensing shadow possessed incomparably powerful spirit energy. The number of lives a demon spirit had killed in its lifetime was astronomical. Before killing a life, it would first use the demon spirit's eye to instantly lock onto the soul of the creature, and then explode it. Then it would tear and devour the creature alive. Amidst the endless slaughter, these exploding souls, these souls that had been completely lost, had been completely destroyed. Little by little, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of soul fragments gathered together and became spirit condensing shadow. They had life and incomparably powerful spirit energy. However, they had no consciousness and could only instinctively follow this demon spirit forever. It was like a vengeful spirit. Although it had lost all its memories, it still followed the murderer closely. Once this demon spirit died, this spirit condensing shadow would also instantly dissipate. However, the heaven-defying Despair City secret realm actually preserved this spirit condensing shadow completely. Suddenly, this made the spirit condensing shadow fall into the hands of humans for the first time. Yang Dingtian looked at this spirit condensing shadow. This was a ball of light and shadow energy, almost transparent. It looked like a head, but it had no face. It was just constantly surging, proving that it had life. However, there was no sadness or joy. He only needed to inject his master's soul into the spirit condensing shadow. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath. He seemed to be very nervous, but also not too nervous, because the most difficult part had been completed. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian directly injected the flame that wrapped his master's soul into the spirit-condensing shadow. The moment it was injected, Yang Dingtian controlled countless resentful spirits and quickly evacuated. Everything was done perfectly. His master's soul quickly entered, and countless spirit demon fire resentful spirits quickly flew away and returned to Yang Dingtian's qi. He didn't let his master's soul expose even a little bit to the outside space, nor did he let any resentful spirits enter the spirit-condensing shadow. Because the spirit-condensing shadow was very powerful, but it didn't have any consciousness. Therefore, even if a resentful spirit entered, it would instantly control the entire spirit-condensing shadow. In this way, one of the resentful spirits would instantly recover and become a complete soul. Whoosh! Almost instantly, the remnants of his master's soul suddenly drilled into the spirit-condensing shadow. Then, Yang Dingtian held his breath and waited for his master's powerful soul to recover. However, everything was quiet and nothing happened. The scene that Yang Dingtian imagined did not appear. His master's powerful soul did not soar into the sky. That spirit-condensing shadow was still wriggling without consciousness. It was still in the shape of a head without a face. Yang Dingtian did not have any doubts that he would fail. He still quietly stared at this spirit-condensing shadow. It began to change. It turned out to be like this. The energy of the spirit-condensing shadow wriggled, and then gradually began to grow its own face. It grew out bit by bit. First it was the eyes, then the nose, then the mouth. In the end, a complete face grew out. It was his master's face. Yang Dingtian had seen it thousands of times in his mind, but he hadn't seen his master's face in the real world for several years. Not only his face, but his eyebrows and hair also completely grew out. This spirit-condensing shadow turned into a complete head of his master. However, his eyes were still closed. Then, the spirit-condensing shadow that turned into his master's head kept spinning in Yang Dingtian's palm. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and instantly shot out an incomparably bright light. Boom! In an instant, the entire seabed shook violently. Countless seawater soared into the sky. This spirit-condensing shadow suddenly exploded. In an instant, a complete Dongfang Minmi, a complete shadow of his master, stood directly in front of Yang Dingtian. Although it was a light shadow, it was exactly the same as his master. Moreover, it was not the appearance of an old man, but a handsome appearance. His temperament was extremely high, like Mount Tai standing tall. A grandmaster of a generation, with an imposing aura. Ah! Dongfang Minmi raised his head and roared. Haha, I slept for a long time. Master! Yang Dingtian's body suddenly trembled. He desperately resisted the urge to cry. He slowly knelt down in the water and said, Master, I see you again. It's been 3 years. I see you again. The moment Dongfang Minmi saw Yang Dingtian, he was suddenly shocked. Little Tian, what's going on? Am I not in your head? Dongfang Minmi said in shock. Also, isn't my soul consciousness extremely weak? Why is it so strong now? It's even stronger than me at my peak. Yang Dingtian said, Master, I said before that one day, I will resurrect you. Now I have finally done it. Dongfang Minmi's body trembled. He looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief, and looked at his own body. After a long time, he muttered to himself, My soul has really been resurrected? My soul has really been resurrected. I, Dongfang Minmi, actually have a day when I can see the light of day again? Ha 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 ha. Then, Dongfang Minmi looked up to the sky and laughed. As he laughed, he cried, I, Dongfang Minmi, actually have a day when I can see the light of day again. Ha ha ha. Then, Dongfang Minmi's shadow stepped forward and hugged Yang Dingtian. My good disciple, you have suffered during this period of time, you have suffered. My good disciple, it's all thanks to you. It's all thanks to you that I can see the light of day again. My good disciple, from now on, you are no longer fighting alone. I will always fight side by side with you. My good disciple, you are even more amazing and outstanding than I imagined. Dongfang Minmi was so excited that he could not control himself. After a long time he asked, Little Tian, quickly tell Master, how did you revive Master's soul and pull it out of your head? Quickly tell me. I've tried everything, But it's impossible. How did you do it? Then, Yang Dingtian told him everything. From the soul-gathering shadow in the secret realm of Despair City, to the humiliation in the Vulture Palace. Finally, he told him his crazy idea. Entering deep meditation, in the spiritual world, from the southern barbarian continent to the world of ice and snow, he found Dongfang Minmi's sleeping soul. Then, even more crazily, he introduced the energy of the real world, the energy of the million-spirit demon fire resentful spirit, into the meditation world to protect Dongfang Minmi's soul. Finally, he used the soul-assimilating art to pull the soul out. After everything was done, he injected the soul into the soul-gathering shadow. After listening to everything Yang Dingtian said, Dongfang Minmi was completely stunned. For a full few minutes, he did not make a single sound. Finally, he stared blankly at Yang Dingtian and said, "Little Tian, your Xian veins are a top talent. Your breadth of mind is top-notch talent. Your methods and tactics are only above average. However, all of these added together cannot compare to your vision, your almost crazy great wisdom. The methods you said are subversive, wisdom from beyond the 9 heavens. Don't say that I can't think of it, after listening to you. Even I can't understand. Even if you tell me, there are still some parts that I don't understand. Now I know what kind of qualities a world subverter should have. Now I know what kind of wisdom beyond the 9 heavens is like. This kind of vision, no matter if it is me Wuya, Zhu Qingzhu, or Shimen Wuya, we will never have." Then Dongfang Minmi laughed loudly and said, "Child, if Wolingzi knows, he will be extremely regretful and shocked. Because he has unintentionally caused the birth of a future martial saint. The birth of a true martial saint. Not some martial grandmaster, not some half-sage, but a true martial saint. A martial saint in the post-civilization era of the primal chaos continent. If one hears the Tao in the morning, one can die in the evening." Dongfang Minmi sighed and said, "Now I finally know why we can never cross the martial grandmaster realm. Now I finally know what a martial saint needs. It is not some Xian Meridian's talent, nor is it a great wisdom that grasps the absolute truth of this world. It is a great enlightenment that grasps this divine realm." Then, Dongfang Minmi looked at Yang Dingtian and said, "Child, this painful cycle of nearly 1,000 years, this contradictory and unsolvable law of the primal chaos world, perhaps it will completely end in your hands. Now I can be sure that you can definitely do what I can't do." Immediately, Yang Dingtian was praised by Dongfang Minmi until his face turned red. Then he said, "Master, actually your resurrection process is not complete yet." "Not complete yet?" Dongfang Minmi was shocked. "Yes, I still need to give you a body," Yang Dingtian said. "A body? How is that possible?" Dongfang Minmi said in shock. "Being able to revive my soul, I am already extremely shocked and grateful, but you still want to give me a body?" Yang Dingtian took out a lifelike corpse from his space ring. "Lung Qingchen." Immediately, Dongfang Minmi was incomparably sorrowful. He already knew about Lung Qingchen's death. The most painful thing was not Lung Qingchen's death, but his own daughter. She had personally killed the martial uncle, who treated her the best and kindest. Lung Qingchen, the true successor of Yinyang School, and Dongfang Minmi were as close as brothers. When she felt that her talent was not as good as Dongfang Minmi's, she decisively gave up her position as the successor of Yinyang School, and let Dongfang Minmi become the new sect master. However, although Dongfang Minmi was extremely talented in martial arts, he was not a qualified sect master. This was because after becoming a martial grandmaster, all his energy was focused on finding the ultimate truth of the world, and most of his time was not in Yinyang School. At this time, Lung Qingchen was once again shouldering the burden of Yinyang School. When Dongfang Bingling was bullied, Lung Qingchen had also played the role of a father. Although the Yinyang School's martial arts were better, and Lung Qingchen was the Yinyang School's head. However, Lung Qingchen had always played the role of an elder brother, and it was always Lung Qingchen who took care of Dongfang Minmi. Now, seeing Lung Qingchen's corpse, Dongfang Minmi could not help but feel incomparably sorrowful. Yang Dingtian took out the demon spirit heart from his space ring. This was a sparkling and translucent energy crystal, that was constantly changing colors. One moment, it was blood red. The next, it was completely black. And the next, it was completely colorless. It was surging with an almost infinite amount of energy, violent and incomparably powerful. Master, this demon spirit heart came from a 1,800-year-old demon spirit. Yang Dingtian smiled bitterly and said, Actually, I only needed a 300 to 400 years old demon spirit heart. But I didn't expect this 1,800-year-old demon spirit heart to be the youngest. Therefore, the energy in this demon spirit heart is incomparably powerful and violent. Dongfang Minmi nodded with a solemn expression. As the former number 1 expert in the world, he naturally knew how powerful demon spirits were. Therefore, unless there's a very, very powerful soul that can suppress this demon spirit heart, otherwise, the moment I put this demon spirit heart into Marshal Ant Lung's corpse will be the moment an uncontrollable heaven-defying killing god is born. At that time, no one will be able to control him, and I might even die under his sword. Yang Dingtian. But fortunately, my soul-condensed shadow is 2,300 years old, and it's even more powerful, enough to suppress the violent aura of this demon spirit heart. The strength of my soul-condensed shadow has already exceeded my imagination, Dongfang Minmi said. I even feel that this energy is enough to support me as a soul without dissipating. But in that case, there won't be any martial arts, Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yang Dingtian. Master, the moment I put the demon spirit heart into Marshal Ant Lung's corpse, I will immediately use the art of rebirth to inject your soul into Marshal Ant Lung's brain. However, it's a pity that I haven't learned the art of rebirth yet. I'll start learning it now. Learn what art of rebirth? Dongfang Minmi said. I'm a powerful soul with self-consciousness, and I can easily enter senior brother Lung's brain directly. Ah, Yang Dingtian was stunned. Then he said angrily, Bastard Wuxia, you tricked me again. This art of rebirth is useless to me. That's right, Yang Dingtian was indeed tricked. If it was just using the soul separation art to extract the soul, it would indeed require the art of rebirth to inject the soul into a new body. This was because entering a new body and controlling a new brain required a huge amount of energy. When this soul was floating in the air, it was extremely fragile and couldn't complete it on its own, so it needed the art of rebirth. However, Dongfang Minmi's soul had the spirit-condensing shadow, and it was so powerful that it could break through the sky. It could easily occupy Lung Qingchen's brain and control his body. So why would it need the art of rebirth? Wuxia clearly knew this, but he still tricked him. He didn't give him the soul separation art, and used a useless trash art of rebirth to cheat Yang Dingtian of the Despair City secret realm. He was really an old thief who didn't die. Bastard. As for Yang Dingtian, he was a man of great wisdom, who could come up with the idea of reviving Dongfang Minmi on his own. And he was a man of great enlightenment, who could touch the realm of gods. In the face of such a small scheme, he was tricked by Wuxia. Yang Dingtian suddenly had a little doubt about his own intelligence. Ha ha ha. Master laughed and stroked Yang Dingtian's head. Little Tian, Wuxia is so smart. Perhaps it's because he can never break through to the true saint level. Then he comforted. All right, you've comprehended the deepest part of the martial arts civilization, and you've touched the realm of gods. You have to thank Wuxia. Don't be angry, let's begin. Okay. Yang Dingtian resisted the urge to throw the art of rebirth away as trash, and fiercely stuffed it back into his spatial ring. Then, he held the demon spirit heart in one hand, and gently cut open Lung Qingchen's chest with the other, revealing the frozen heart that had already stopped beating. Master, are you ready? Yang Dingtian asked. Yes, my soul energy is unprecedentedly strong, enough to suppress the brutality of this demon spirit heart. Dongfang Minmi said. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath, and then directly pressed the demon spirit heart into Lung Qingchen's heart. In an instant, the demon spirit heart was incomparably greedy and crazy, and it suddenly drilled into Lung Qingchen's heart. In an instant, Lung Qingchen's frozen heart recovered. Then it suddenly changed color, black, colorless, and blood red. It kept changing, and then it beat violently. In an instant, an incomparably powerful and brutal energy aura rushed out into the sky. Lung Qingchen's body quickly thawed. Then, he abruptly opened his eyes, which were blood red. His eyes were extremely terrifying, and they were black and red. It was like the color of blood after drying up. There was no emotion, no mercy, only endless brutality, endless bloodthirst, and endless slaughter. A murderous aura burst out. In an instant, the surrounding hundreds of miles of seawater instantly turned blood red. The fish and shrimp within hundreds of miles of the surrounding area instantly died. Just the murderous aura instantly killed all the fragile sounds within 100 miles of the surrounding area. This was the demon spirit heart, an incomparably terrifying and powerful demon spirit heart. Immediately afterward, Lung Qingchen's body was about to sit up suddenly, and instantly wanted to tear Yang Dingtian into pieces. Slaughtering monsters, slaughtering all the living creatures within sight. Swoosh! At this time, Dongfang Minmi's soul turned into a stream of light, and instantly drilled into Lung Qingchen's brain. Suddenly, Lung Qingchen's body, which was sitting up, was instantly frozen. All the murderous aura, all the violence, all the ferocity. In an instant, it disappeared without a trace. This body, like a puppet, sat there motionless. Immediately afterward, he suddenly trembled violently, trembled and trembled. Boom, boom, boom. On the bottom of the sea, a crack of hundreds of miles was suddenly torn open. The seawater surged into the sky, turning into a 100-meter tsunami, soaring into the sky. Heaven and earth suddenly changed color. The sea surface, the edge of the southern barbarian continent, shook violently. This meant that a Grandmaster-level powerhouse was born. Chapter 465. The southern barbarian continent was remote. Therefore very, very few people saw this scene of heaven and earth changing color. The seabed was suddenly torn apart, and the seabed violently shook. The resulting tsunami almost destroyed the heavens and earth. Even though the southern barbarian continent was still nearly 100 miles away from here. But the surging tsunami still crazily swept over. In the end, the towering wave was like a wall, crushing towards the southern barbarian continent. Countless barbarians, countless animals, and countless birds flew, desperately fleeing. Countless gigantic trees and incomparably dense forests were crushed into smithereens like withered twigs and rotten wood. This level of change was no longer just because of the birth of a martial grandmaster. It was because Dongfang Minmi's soul and the demon spirit heart were crazily fighting for control of this body. Or it could be said that Dongfang Minmi's soul was crazily suppressing the demon spirit heart. An 1800-year-old demon spirit heart and a 2,300-year-old soul condensed shadow. Even though the battle was incomparably intense, the outcome was already decided. Only the process was a little too earth-shattering. In particular, Yang Dingtian had chosen a relatively weak seabed environment. This incomparably powerful energy directly ignited the already unbalanced energy in the depths of the seabed, directly causing the seabed to tear apart for nearly 1,000 miles, causing a huge earthquake, and then a shocking tsunami. The central continent was really too far away from here, so they could not sense it. And the barbarians of the southern barbarian continent did not know anything. The only one who could sense it was Wuxia in the Vulture Palace thousands of miles away. Wuxia was still sitting cross-legged in the thatched cottage on the peak of the Immortal Mountain, adjusting his breathing with his eyes closed. There were 2 candlelight in front of him. They were extremely weak and colorless flames that were almost invisible. It could be seen that Yang Dingtian was not a meticulous observer. He came here twice and did not discover these 2 flames. Suddenly, the 2 flames lightly trembled. Instantly, Wuxia's heart fiercely trembled. Wuxia instantly opened his eyes, shooting out an incomparably deep and bright light, as if wanting to pierce through the clouds and look thousands of miles away. What's going on? There will be earthquakes at the bottom of the sea 2,300 li away. But calculating the date, there should still be about 13 years. Wuxia was puzzled. Why would there be earthquakes and tsunamis in advance? Then, Wuxia's eyebrows twitched as he thought of a terrifying possibility. Could it be that he actually succeeded? Immediately after, he shook his head and rejected the idea. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He wasn't even a grandmaster yet. And with his insignificant spiritual power, how could he possibly succeed without the soul detachment art? Even if the sun rose in the west and heaven and earth fell, he would not succeed. The corner of Wu Lingzi's mouth revealed a disdainful smile. Over the past 200 years, he had seen a lot of arrogant, foolish, conceited and narrow-minded people. Yang Dingtian was just one of them. Perhaps an undersea monster had accidentally crashed into the weakest part of the undersea energy. Central State Continent. A burly man with an expressionless face, carrying a huge coffin on his back, walked on the streets of the Central Continent. He was Yang Dingtian. When he landed on the South Central State Continent, he found out how many days he had been in the sea. A total of 17 days. That's right, a total of 17 days. In fact, in the meditation world, the time he spent looking for his master and extracting his master's soul did not exceed a day. His master's soul entered Lung Qingchen's body and fought with the demon spirit heart for no more than a day. For the remaining 15 days, Yang Dingtian spent all his time in the meditation world, comprehending the yin and yang information of the soul assimilating art. 15 days in the real world was 2 years in the meditation world. He spent 2 years to detoxify the tens of millions of yin and yang information codes of the soul assimilating art. However, he was completely immersed in it and could not feel the existence of time. He had stayed at the bottom of the sea for 17 days, which meant that it had been 22 days since he left Cloud Sky City. There were 2 things he was most concerned about. First, what was the result of the Tiando League conference? Second, had Qin Chichi and Ning Wuming's army been dispatched? Soon, Yang Dingtian heard or saw it. He did not even need to ask. At the dock, he saw his arrest warrant. Tiando League's heavenly arrest warrant. The target of the arrest warrant was him, Yang Dingtian. The densely packed arrest warrants were all Yang Dingtian's direct subordinates and comrades. 10 days ago, the Tiando League's final decision had been made. Yang Dingtian was found guilty of murdering Dongfang Bingling. Yang Dingtian was found guilty of colluding with evil ways. Cloud Sky City was expelled from the Tiando League. All the members of the Tiando League, except for 3 votes against and 2 abstentions, passed. Wooden Sword Castle objected to punishing Yang Dingtian and Cloud Sky City's expulsion. Then, Wooden Sword Castle was expelled from the Tiando League on the spot for colluding with Yang Dingtian. There were also 2 votes against, which Yang Dingtian did not expect. Earth Fisher City and Cloud Sky Pavilion. Earth Fisher City's Lord Kuei roared in front of everyone. He objected to punishing Yang Dingtian and called for the extermination of the South Sea Ning clan in evil ways. He mocked everyone in front of everyone. Although the Cloud Sky Pavilion master did not say anything, he followed Kuei and voted against. However, these 3 no votes were useless. In the Tiando League, only 5 powers had veto power. Yin Sect, Black Heaven Sect, Yin Yang School, Vulture Palace and Northwest Qin City. The 2 abstentions came from Yin Yang School and Vulture Palace. Vulture Palace's abstention was not strange at all. They had expressed that they would not participate in any matters of the Tiando League. However, Yin Yang School's abstention was extremely strange. Everyone knew that Yang Dingtian was Yin Yang School's only successor. As for whether it would harm Dongfang Bingling, everyone knew in their hearts. Moreover, even though Dongfang Minmi and Lung Qingchen were no longer around, Yin Yang School still had half a grandmaster. Its status was even higher than that of the Black Heaven Sect. Logically speaking, there was no need for them to fear the evil ways. In fact, they should directly lead the Tiando League to suppress the evil ways' arrogance. However, for some reason, Yin Yang School did not say anything. The Tiando League's headquarters was less than 300 miles away from Yin Yang School. However, when the Tiando League's conference was held, Yin Yang School's mountain gate was closed, and no one appeared. Just when everyone thought that Yin Yang School would be absent from the conference, Lung Ao, as a representative, appeared at the Tiando League's conference. He abstained from voting and left immediately. Thus, the conference directly passed the resolution of the Northwest Tiando League's leader, Lung Yinmei. Yang Dingtian was convicted of colluding with evil ways. Yang Dingtian was convicted of murdering Dongfang Bingling. Yang Dingtian and Cloud Sky City were expelled from the Taiando League forever. All the forces and people in the world were ordered to completely draw a clear line with Yang Dingtian. A kill order was issued for Yang Dingtian in the chaotic world. Anyone who saw him could arrest or kill him. The Northwest Taiando League was authorized to form a righteous alliance to suppress Cloud Sky City. All of Yang Dingtian's crimes were announced to the world, and the truth of Yang Dingtian's crimes were spread to every corner of the world in the shortest time possible. The conference passed that the Ning clan of the South Sea was transferred to the Wooden Sword Castle and entered the Taiando League's list. The conference passed that the Earth-splitting city's leader, Kuei Si, was stubborn and showed the wrong attitude of sympathy towards Yang Dingtian. Thus, Earth-splitting city was demoted from one of the 9 sects to one of the 27 sects. The conference passed that the Ning clan of the South Sea replaced Earth-splitting city and entered the 9 sects of the world. They were also transferred to the Zhongzhou Taiando League. The conference passed that the Black Sky sect continued to be the leader of the Zhongzhou Taiando League, and the Ning clan of the South Sea became the deputy leader of the Zhongzhou Taiando League. The conference urged Earth-splitting city's leader, Kuei Si, to immediately recognize his mistake and send troops to join the Crusade army. Otherwise, he reserved the right to further punish Earth-splitting city. Thus, Ning Wuming completely grasped the situation of the Western world and began to make arrangements for Zhongzhou. Once the Crusade army destroyed Cloud Sky City's weak forces with a thunderous force, they would immediately start the Zhongzhou strategy. The target of Zhongzhou's crusade was already very clear. It was Earth-splitting city's leader, Kuei Si. Unless Kuei Si immediately compromised and sent troops to attack Cloud Sky City. Otherwise, Earth-splitting city would be the next to be destroyed and would have to face the million-strong Alliance army. The conference passed that on the 15th of August, the Alliance army would officially attack Cloud Sky City. All the forces of the Western World Taiando League had to send their main forces to participate in the crusade against Cloud Sky City. All the forces in Zhongzhou had to provide support to the best of their ability. After these resolutions were passed, Earth-splitting city's leader, Kuei Si, shouted loudly, "The Taiando League is dead. The justice of the world is dead." Then, Kuei Si left the Taiando League conference under the Black Sky sect's scolding. Of course, this was the first wave of the Taiando League conference. Although it caused a stir in some people's hearts, it was far from the second wave. This person's appearance at the Taiando League conference caused a huge wave in everyone's hearts. All the members of the Taiando League, including Zhu Qingzhu, left the conference hall and went to the entrance to welcome him. The young master of the Netherworld Sea, the representative of the Vulture Palace, Wu Yuming, entered the Taiando League headquarters. This was a scene that would mark history. The two most powerful forces in the world could overturn the entire world. Even the Queen Devil Queen had to be wary of these two people. The Vulture Palace's leader, Wuxia, and the Netherworld Sea's leader, Wu Yu, finally appeared in the world for the first time. The moment Wu Yuming appeared, he instantly became the most dazzling and powerful person in the world. He directly suppressed Zhu Hongxue, Qin Huayu, and all the other geniuses. Wu Yuming announced at the conference that he would represent the Vulture Palace and the Netherworld Sea to express absolute neutrality towards the Taiando League's decision. The Vulture Palace and the Netherworld Sea were willing to admit that Yang Dingtian had colluded with evil ways. They were willing to admit that the Alliance army had decided to attack Cloud Sky City. They were willing to admit that Cloud Sky City had been destroyed. They were willing to admit that the Northwest Taiando League had divided Cloud Sky City's territory after its destruction. However, he hoped that the Taiando League would spare Yang Dingtian's life, cripple Yang Dingtian's martial arts, and imprison him for the rest of his life. Then, Wu Yuming's suggestion was instantly approved by the Taiando League conference. Thus, countless documents began to be revised. Countless notices were completely revised. In the end, in the eyes of the world, Yang Dingtian's fate was completely decided by Wu Yuming's words. Cripple his martial arts and imprison him for the rest of his life. The moment after the Taiando League conference ended, 30,000 messenger swans flew out from the Eastern Cloud Prefecture in a dense black mass. They carried the Taiando League's decision and spread it to every corner of the world. Thousands of warriors rode on various flying mounts and spread the news to the world. All the sect masters and sect masters who participated in the Tiando League rode on the fastest flying mounts and returned to their sections. In the entire Western world, all the Tiando League forces had already formed their armies and quickly gathered. The Tiando League's alliance army was divided into 4 armies. The World Society's army came from the north to the south. The Northwest Qin City's army and the White Cloud City's army came from the west to the east. The South Sea's Ning clan and the Mercenary Army came from the south to the north. The Divine Weapons Mountain Villa's Expeditionary Army came from the east to the west. The 4 armies surrounded and destroyed Cloud Sky City from the north, south, east, and west. They attacked Cloud Sky City from 4 directions. Finally, they met in Cloud Sky City. The commanders of the 4 armies were Song Xiao, Qin Wanqiu, Ning Wuming, and Xiu Wanjia. Among them, the World Society's army in the north sent out 250,000 soldiers. All their forces, including the Steel Army and the remaining Demon Dragon Army, came out in full force. The Qin City and White Cloud City in the west sent out 400,000 soldiers. Qin City sent out 320,000. White Cloud City sent out 800,000. The Southern Army sent out 450,000 soldiers. Among them were the Ning clan of the South Sea, 30,000 Sky Phoenix Pavilion, and 400,000 mercenaries. The Divine Weapons Mountain Villa sent out 150,000 soldiers from the Eastern Army. The Zhongzhou Expeditionary Army was still undecided, but the armed forces that were already in place had 130,000 soldiers. It was estimated that the Eastern Army would have more than 300,000 soldiers. The 4 armies had more than 1,300,000 soldiers. The number of soldiers was 10 times that of Cloud Sky City. Even if everyone in Cloud Sky City was a soldier, they would only have 300,000 soldiers. However, it was unrealistic for everyone to be a soldier. This was because the chaotic world was different from the ancient Earth. In the ancient times of China, any able-bodied man could be a soldier with a weapon. However, in the chaotic world, all the armed forces had undergone long-term training. Their combat power was at least 10 times that of ordinary people. Therefore, in the chaotic world, those who could fight were always armed forces. There were no militias. If ordinary people walked onto the battlefield, they would be useless. They would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Therefore, Cloud Sky City's army could only have 100,000 soldiers at most. 100,000 against 1,350,000. This was the impending war. Yang Dingtian was about to face his first great battle with the evil ways. There were 2 things that Yang Dingtian did not expect. The first was that the earth-splitting city's lord, Kuei Si, was so stubborn that he could not tolerate even a little bit of sand in his eyes. He did not compromise at all. He did not know Yang Dingtian at all, and did not have any friendship with him. However, he was completely on Yang Dingtian's side, and did not hesitate to bet the fate of the entire earth-splitting city. The second thing that Yang Dingtian didn't expect was that the Shrine of 10,000 Extermination was much more extravagant than he had imagined. In the beginning, Qin Chichi was only prepared to use Qin City's 100,000 soldiers. Later, it became the Tiando League's Northwest Alliance Army. In the end, it had evolved to a total of 1,300,000 soldiers. Of course, this destructive force was not just to destroy Cloud Sky City. Instead, it was to intimidate the world and make all the forces put away their unwillingness to accept the situation. Then they would completely take sides. Those who were not willing to take sides would be completely destroyed. Although they were thousands of miles apart, Yang Dingtian could still clearly feel the aura of a great war. It was hazy in the sky above Zhongzhou. The entire Zhongzhou had already entered a black terror. On the bustling streets, there were not many people. Most of the shops on both sides of the street had already closed. Even the brothels did not have any music. The entire Zhongzhou was preparing for war. The cavalry of the Zhongzhou Tiando League could be found in every corner of the Zhongzhou mainland. This was because the Tiando League had issued many arrest warrants. There were many targets to be arrested. Yang Dingtian was only the number 1 in the Tiando League. Next, all of Yang Dingtian's direct descendants and all of his subordinates were on the wanted list. Everyone related to Yang Dingtian was also on the wanted list, not to mention people like Zhao Mu, even wandering warriors who had said a few good words to Yang Dingtian, or who had been given a few gold coins by Yang Dingtian, were all on the wanted list. Now there were more than 30,000 people on the wanted list, and it was still increasing. All the cities in Zhengzhou were under martial law. 50,000 shadow cavalry patrolled day and night, arresting anyone on the wanted list. At this moment, the number of people arrested in Zhengzhou had already exceeded 10,000. Most of these people had nothing to do with Yang Dingtian. They had only said a few good words to Yang Dingtian in private. Not to mention saying a few good words to Yang Dingtian. Even if they doubted the decision of the Taiando League, or sympathized with Yang Dingtian, they would be arrested immediately. Moreover, the Zhengzhou Taiando League had issued a reward. Anyone who doubted the Taiando League, or sympathized with Yang Dingtian, was to report it immediately. Once it was verified, they would be rewarded. Suddenly, the entire Zhengzhou continent was in a state of panic. All the citizens and martial artists had sunk into a black terror. The Zhengzhou continent had become the strictest and most terrifying region in the world. Even the Northwest continent, where a great war was about to break out, didn't have such an oppressive and terrifying atmosphere. All the reasons were naturally because the Zhengzhou Taiando League was the world of the Black Heaven sect and the Southern Seas Ning clan. Previously, that martial artist who had fled from the Northwest continent to Zhengzhou to avoid the war had already been arrested on the third day after he had landed in Zhengzhou. Now his head was hanging on the top of Zhengzhou city, together with the heads of those who had spoken to him and those who had pandered to him in the ship's hold. Of course, no one dared to touch Ling Wu because of her relationship with Wu Yuming. Under the absolute black terror, there was only one voice in Zhengzhou right now. Yang Dingtian had committed heinous crimes, and the Taiando League was enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. The Black Heaven sect and the Southern Seas Ning clan had used their absolute strength to suppress all the voices of doubt and opposition. Only one voice was heard in the entire world for the time being. All the doubters had already turned into dried human heads. Yang Dingtian carried a huge coffin and walked into Zhengzhou city. This was a bustling city that was known as the Zhengzhou capital. At this moment, there were almost no citizens entering or leaving the huge city gates. There were only fully armed Taiando League troops. Thousands of heads were hanging on the city walls. These were all the so-called sympathizers of Yang Dingtian. Of course, Yang Dingtian didn't recognize most of them. However, this was merely a portion of them. According to the news that Yang Dingtian had heard, at least 80,000 people had been killed in the entire Zhengzhou. Moreover, this number was still increasing at the rate of a few thousand people every day. Yang Dingtian indeed didn't expect that a great battle thousands of miles away would cause hundreds of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of innocent people to lose their lives in Zhengzhou. Yang Dingtian looked at the heads of these innocent people for a while and sighed. Then he walked into Zhengzhou city. This was because he wanted to go to Zhengzhou's pier and take a ship back to the Northwest continent. At this moment, the sky was already under martial law. No flying mounts other than the Taiando League were allowed. If he wanted to return to the Northwest continent, he could only take a ship. Just as he reached the city gates, a group of fully armed warriors immediately came over. Hundreds of crossbows on the city walls were aimed at Yang Dingtian. Who is it? What's your name? Where are you from? Where are you going? Give me a pass. It must be from the Taiando League forces. It must be from the Taiando League forces other than the Earth-splitting city and the Sky Cloud Pavilion. Yang Dingtian took out a jade token and said indifferently, Vulture Palace, Dugachiobai. Join the Zhengzhou Expeditionary Army to suppress Cloud Sky City. There was no other way. All the ships had stopped. All the ships could only transport the Expeditionary Army to the Northwest continent. That warrior directly took Yang Dingtian's Black Vulture Jade token. The leader of the warriors next to him patted the warrior's hand and knelt down on one knee. Greetings, Lord Dugu of the Vulture Palace. Yang Dingtian replied indifferently. Then he walked into the city. Immediately, A group of fully armed black knights surrounded Yang Dingtian tightly and escorted him to the pier. At this moment, the city was densely packed with soldiers and warships. Group after group of fully armed troops boarded one warship after another. Then, the densely packed crystal warships quickly sailed in the direction of the northwest continent. Everyone, get out of the way. Stop all military operations and let Lord Duga board the ship. The leader of the Black Knights ran quickly and shouted loudly. At this moment, the Vulture Palace's status was even higher than the Black Heaven sect. Chapter 467. More than 10,000 soldiers would be boundless. More than 100,000 soldiers would be difficult for even birds to cross. At this moment, if one were to look down from the sky, they would see that the huge dock of Zhengzhou City was densely packed with soldiers. On the surface of the sea, there were all kinds of warships. Yang Dingtian estimated that there were at least 30 or so soldiers boarding the warships at the same time. Each warship carried 200 to 500 soldiers. At this moment, there were at least a few hundred warships anchored on the surface of the sea. Of course, not every warship carried soldiers. There were also all kinds of crystals, armor, weapons, rations, and so on. It was not that the Northwest continent could not provide for the expeditionary army of Zhengzhou City. Instead, the forces of Zhengzhou City were expressing their attitude. They were at odds with Yang Dingtian. Therefore, they brought their own rations and armor to eliminate Yang Dingtian, who was in the so-called evil ways. It was a disguised show of loyalty. Yang Dingtian stepped onto a random warship. This warship was obviously different. It was much more luxurious. Moreover, there weren't any densely packed troops. They were all experts from various sects and clans. This warship was obviously bigger than the other warships, but there were only a few dozen people on it. The lowest treatment was 4 people to a cabin. As for Yang Dingtian, who was impersonating Duga Qiubai, it was even more exaggerated. He occupied a large cabin that was dozens of square meters. There was everything inside. Soon, all the warships at the dock were ready. They immediately left the dock and came to the surface of the sea. They gathered with the other warships and formed a sharp knife formation. Yang Dingtian stood on the deck and looked at the surrounding densely packed battleships. Yang Dingtian's warship was the 5th warship. The 4 warships in front were bigger and more majestic. Then a high-ranking officer of the Zhengzhou Taekwondo League rode a golden eagle and hovered in the air. He shouted, "Zhengzhou City's 5th Expeditionary Army is assembled. Shall we depart?" "Depart." A woman's voice came from the leading warship. Yang Dingtian knew this voice. It was First Madame Gongsun of the 7 Refined Lane. He did not expect the 7 Refined Lane to participate. Obviously, First Madame Gongsun was the commander of the 5th Expeditionary Force. "Yes," the Central Province Taekwondo League officer said loudly. All warships set off. Hundreds of warships formed a knife-shaped formation, and like a giant beast, they began to move toward the northwest continent. That's right, it was flying. It was because this place was filled with crystal warships, and they were of a much higher grade than Ling Wu's crystal warship. Hundreds of battleships and more than 100,000 soldiers were heading toward the northwest continent. At the same time, a dense wave of cries could be heard. Yang Dingtian turned his head abruptly. Suddenly, the sky was filled with golden light, illuminating the sea. The light was brighter than the sun, so bright that Yang Dingtian could barely open his eyes. From the distant land, countless golden eagles soared into the sky. It was pitch black, blotting out the sky and the sun. Yang Dingtian's body trembled violently as he was greatly alarmed. The Eagle Nest's Golden Condor Legion was mobilized. The Eagle Nest was one of the 27 sects of the Central State. It was famous for its Golden Condor army. In the entire chaotic continent, there were 2 forces that possessed powerful air forces. The first was the Earth Fisher City. The second was the Eagle Nest. The Eagle Nest's Golden Condor Legion was not as powerful as the Earth Fisher City's shredding demon vultures. However, their numbers were much greater. At this moment, Yang Dingtian could clearly see that the Eagle Nest's Golden Condor Legion had completely covered the sky. There were more than 10,000 of them. Had the Eagle Nest gone mad? They had actually mobilized more than 10,000 Golden Condor Legion for an expedition of 10,000 miles? Looking at the densely packed Golden Condor Legion in the sky, Yang Dingtian's eyes suddenly shrank. This was a huge problem. Although Yang Dingtian had the extremely powerful Devil Dragon Legion, it was only the overlord of the land after all. It was of no use to the Golden Condor Legion. Of course, Yang Dingtian also had a winged cavalry team in his hands. However, there were only a few hundred of them. Every winged mount demonic beast was extremely precious and difficult to tame. Therefore, among the forces in the world, only the Earth Fisher City and the Eagle Nest had the most elite flying cavalry troops. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's few hundred flying cavalry troops could only be used for patrolling or for fast transportation. Moreover, the flying mounts of Cloud Sky City were not combat mounts. Facing the ferocious Golden Condors, even 10 of them might not be able to defeat one. He had to find a way to deal with this Golden Condor Legion. Otherwise, any defensive line built by Cloud Sky City would be useless against this Golden Condor Legion. This Golden Condor Legion could effortlessly fly above Cloud Sky City and swoop down to destroy everything. This air force was fatal. He had to find a way to deal with it. What was the best solution? Of course, it was to find a stronger air force. In this world, which force had the strongest air force? Without a doubt, it was the Earth Fisher City. The Golden Claw Demon Condors of the Earth Fisher City had undergone thousands of years of evolution and transformation. Currently, each Golden Claw Demon Condor's body was 3 times larger. Its entire body was as hard as steel, and even its feathers were as sharp as swords. Just like the Demon Dragon Legion on land, the Golden Claw Demon Condor Legion was the overlord of the air. The number of adult Golden Claw Demon Condors in the Earth Fisher City that were capable of fighting should not exceed 3,000. However, against the Golden Condor Legion of the Eagle Nest City, the Golden Claw Demon Condors could take on 10 of them. Previously, Yang Dingtian had thought of borrowing the Golden Claw Demon Condor Legion from the Earth Fisher City. However, considering that he had no relationship with Kuei-si, and that he had the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, he would have to pay a huge price in exchange. Therefore, it was impossible to borrow the Golden Claw Demon Condor Legion. However, he did not expect that Kuei-si would be so determined to stand with Yang Dingtian at the Tiando League. In that case, Yang Dingtian could already treat the Earth Fisher City as his most loyal ally. He could totally borrow the Golden Claw Demon Condor Legion and even request for the Earth Fisher City to participate in the war. After hearing Kuei-si's attitude at the Tiando League, Yang Dingtian was hesitant about whether he should make a trip to the Earth Fisher City before the war. At this time, there was no need to hesitate, even though the war was imminent and was about to happen. However, since the Eagle Nest City had sent out tens of thousands of air forces, Yang Dingtian had to go to the Earth Fisher City to ask for help. Only the Golden Condor Legion could eliminate the Golden Condor Legion. If he had the Golden Condor Legion, Yang Dingtian's secret weapon could be unleashed to the maximum in an instant. It was even more exaggerated to say that if he had the Golden Condor Legion, Yang Dingtian could effortlessly eliminate the hundreds of thousands of troops on the ground. Moreover, he had the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. Although time was tight, he had to go to the Earth Fisher City. The Earth Fisher City and the Sky Cloud Pavilion were located 5,500 miles southwest of the Middle State. This was a single piece of land that spanned over 5,000 miles. This piece of land was originally called the Southern Ingzhou. However, because the island where the Black Heaven sect was located was called Ingzhou Island, Zhu Qingzhou tyrannically ordered the Tiando League to change the name of the Southern Ingzhou. Therefore, in the official language of the Tiando League, the Southern Ingzhou was changed to the Southern Laizhou. However, the Earth Fisher City and the Sky Cloud Pavilion still stubbornly used the Southern Ingzhou. Although it was a few thousand miles away from the Middle State, the Southern Ingzhou still belonged to the Middle State Tiando League. Just like how the World Society belonged to the Northwest Tiando League, even though it was located in the north. The huge fleet continued to sail towards the northwest continent. Each fleet spanned over 100 miles, and there were hundreds of warships. They were majestic and filled with an aura that could sweep everything away. This was only the fifth fleet of the Middle State Expeditionary Army. Of course, this was also the most powerful fleet of the Middle State Expeditionary Army. The powerful Golden Condor Legion flew above the fleet, shining with golden light and blotting out the sun. Of course, they could not fly over 10,000 miles in one go. Every 2,000 miles, they would land on the fleet and take turns to rest. 16 hours later, the fleet had sailed 2,000 miles. At this moment, the fleet was in the north of the southern Yingzhou. They were only 4,000 miles away from the Earth Fisher City. Furthermore, the sky was already completely dark. It was already the closest to the Earth Fisher City from here. Yang Dingtian used his invisibility mystic skill and jumped off the warship and into the sea. Then, he followed the bottom of the sea and headed south. Even at the bottom of the sea, Yang Dingtian's speed was shocking. He tore through the sea like a swordfish and traveled 200 to 300 miles per hour. After traveling a few hundred miles under the sea, Yang Dingtian suddenly rose into the air and flew out of the sea. He used his flying mystic skill and flew towards the Earth Fisher City. Yang Dingtian flew at full speed and reached a speed of 600 to 700 miles per hour. After 6 hours, he saw the southern Yingzhou. At this moment, the sky had just lit up. The southern Yingzhou could be said to have the strangest and most complicated terrain in the world. The ground in the north was deeply sunken. The ground in the south was raised high. The entire northern part of the southern Yingzhou was filled with incomparably huge cracks and collapses. Flat ground was very rare. Therefore, these precious flat ground were used to grow crops. The houses that people wanted to live in were all built in the huge cracks, in the collapsed depressions. Therefore, the power in the north was called the Earth Fisher City. And in the south, the entire ground rose crazily and formed a huge plateau. The average altitude was 5,000 to 6,000 meters. Therefore, the power in the south was called the Cloud Sky Pavilion. Of course, logically speaking, the Cloud Sky Pavilion, which was a few thousand meters above sea level, should have an extremely developed air force. And the Earth Fisher City, which had collapsed underground, should have a developed navy. But the result was the complete opposite. The Earth Fisher City had the world's #1 air force, the Demon Eagle Army. The Cloud Sky Pavilion, on the other hand, had the world's #1 navy, the Sun Crystal warship. Why was it like this? The reason was simple. For the past 1,000 years, the Cloud Sky Pavilion and the Earth Fisher City had been fighting for the entire southern Yingzhou. But because one was underground and the other was a few thousand meters above sea level, it was difficult for them to fight each other. In order to attack the Cloud Sky Pavilion, the Earth Fisher City desperately developed their air force. And the Cloud Sky Pavilion, in order to attack the Earth Fisher City, desperately developed their navy. Over time, the two powers that had been fighting for nearly 1,000 years had the world's #1 air force and the world's #1 navy. And a few decades ago, because Kuei and the Cloud Sky Pavilion master had a regretful and tangled relationship. Although the two of them did not end up together, the Cloud Sky Pavilion and the Earth Fisher City finally stopped the 1,000 years of war and restored peace. In fact, it was not just peace. On many key occasions, the two of them still advanced and retreated together. Moreover, the relationship between the two of them had always been ambiguous. Kuei got married, but the Cloud Sky Pavilion master was still alone. Therefore, a very strange scene appeared. The disciples of the Cloud Sky Pavilion and the Earth Fisher City were like fire and water, extremely hostile to each other. But the masters of the two powers were ambiguous and close, advancing and retreating together. But in this way, it became even more difficult for the Temple of Annihilation to completely conquer this land. A few hundred miles away from the Earth Fisher City, dozens of Demon Eagle cavalry had already discovered Yang Dingtian. Immediately, the Golden Claw Demon Eagle rushed towards Yang Dingtian like lightning. Yang Dingtian was shocked. He was flying at a height of nearly 10,000 meters. Practically no flying mount would be able to reach such a height. However, the Golden Clawed Demonic Eagle was able to reach it effortlessly. What was even more terrifying was that the flying speed of these golden claw demon eagles was so astonishing, even exceeding Yang Dingtian's full speed. The moment they rushed over, they were like lightning. Yang Dingtian even felt that this flying speed was comparable to the ordinary fighter jets on Earth, almost reaching 1,000 miles per hour. Moreover, each demon eagle was much bigger and sharper than Yang Dingtian had imagined. They were 7 to 8 meters long, but they were not bloated at all. They looked very sharp and slender. Their entire bodies were as sharp as swords and as hard as iron. Sure enough, they were the overlords of the sky. Yang Dingtian was suddenly filled with a huge desire for this demon eagle army. Almost instantly, dozens of demon eagle cavalry surrounded Yang Dingtian from top to bottom. Who are you? The northern part of Yingzhou extends for 500 miles. It is a no-fly zone. You have broken into the airspace of our earth-splitting city. Immediately surrender. The leader of the demon eagle cavalry shouted sternly. Cloud Sky City Lord Yang Dingtian is here to pay a visit to Earth-splitting city Lord Kuei-si. Yang Dingtian said loudly. The leader of the cavalry looked shocked and said, Your Excellency, are you Yang Dingtian? Yes, Yang Dingtian said. Immediately the cavalry bowed and said, Greetings to Your Excellency Yang Dingtian. Greetings to Your Excellency Yang Dingtian. Immediately, the remaining dozens of cavalry all bowed respectfully. Yang Dingtian's heart warmed. This was almost the best treatment he had received. Previously, whether Yang Dingtian went to the Northwest Qin City, the World Club, or the Vulture Palace, he was met with sarcasm, disdain and cold eyes. Only here was he met with sincere and respectful gazes. Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, please follow us. The leader of the Demon Eagle Cavalry said. Then, dozens of demon eagles formed a sharp sword shape, protecting Yang Dingtian in it, and swooped down toward the earth-splitting city. This was the first time Yang Dingtian saw the earth-splitting city. He had seen countless ingenious buildings, but the earth-splitting city was still an eye-opener for him. This was an underground city with countless houses. The entire city was built in a huge crack. One layer after another, they went down until they were thousands of meters underground. Under the lead of dozens of Demon Eagle cavalry, Yang Dingtian flew into a narrow crack. That's right, it was a very narrow crack. At most, only dozens of people could enter. But after entering the crack, an incomparably huge city suddenly came to him. Below the crack, there was an incomparably huge and complicated underground space. Layer upon layer, layer upon layer, layer upon layer. Yang Dingtian saw the most complicated and bizarre city in the world. At the same time, it was also the easiest city to defend and the hardest to attack. No wonder even if Kuei-si roared, Zhu Qingzhu, and the others still didn't dare to expel the earth-splitting city from the Tiando League, and didn't dare to treat them as enemies. Because this earth-splitting city was really an impenetrable fortress. If one wanted to attack the earth-splitting city, the army was useless. One could only use the air force. However, the world's most powerful air force was in the hands of the earth-splitting city. Of course, some people might say to attack with water. However, the fissure under the underground city was incomparably huge. Moreover, there was a bottomless underground river. Perhaps the entire sea would have to be poured down in order to submerge the fissure city. Otherwise, no matter how big the water was, it would disappear without a trace. The earth-splitting city's main hall was in the deepest part of the underground city. Under the lead of the Demon Eagle Cavalry, Yang Dingtian flew into a small hole, and then 7 or 8 circles passed through a long tunnel. Phew! Finally, Yang Dingtian and the others arrived at the center of the earth-splitting city's power. Devour Fortress. This was an underground palace, an underground castle. At this moment, the door was closed. Sir Yang Dingtian, please. The leader of the Demon Eagle Cavalry said. Yang Dingtian took a step forward and said loudly, Cloud Sky City's lord, Yang Dingtian, pays his respects to the earth-splitting city's lord, Kuei-si. Rumble. In front of them, the door of the Devour Fortress slowly opened. Chapter 468. Devour Fortress. The open door was pitch black, like the entrance to hell. Yang Dingtian slowly walked in. This was an incomparably huge hall. Around the hall, dozens of people sat high up, looking down at Yang Dingtian. Kwang! Instantly, the door slammed shut. Instantly, Yang Dingtian's vision turned completely dark. He could not even see his own fingers. Yang Dingtian's cultivation was very high, so even in the dark, he could see clearly. But here, he could not see anything because there was no light at all. You are Cloud Sky City's mayor, Yang Dingtian? A cold and arrogant voice came from the incomparably huge hall. Yang Dingtian had indeed heard this voice before. It was during the Demon City's Merchant Hall's auction. This person was Earth-Splitting City's mayor, Kuei Si. Yes, Yang Dingtian bowed and said, Cloud Sky City's mayor, Yang Dingtian, pays his respects to Senior Kuei Si. Why have you come to my Earth-Splitting City? Kuei Si asked indifferently. Yang Dingtian said, firstly, to thank Senior Kuei Si for speaking up for justice at the Taekwondo League. Secondly, to form an alliance between Cloud Sky City and Earth-Splitting City. Thirdly, to borrow the Demon Eagle army from Earth-Splitting City. Fourthly, to trade the fourth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship with Kuei Si. Yang Dingtian was very straightforward and didn't bother with formalities. He felt that in front of a stubborn and arrogant person like Kuei Si, there was no need to be polite. You don't have to be polite. Kuei Si said, I am a person, 1 is 1, 2 is 2. What I said at the Taekwondo League was not for you, but for myself. Following that, Kuei Si said, you want to trade the fourth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship with me. What are you willing to pay? Yang Dingtian was momentarily stunned. Kuei Si had actually skipped the second, third, and directly went to the fourth. After calming himself down, he still said respectfully, I'm willing to give you a Cosmos ring. With this Cosmos ring, it can reflect all the damage. Of course, the limit is the highest cultivation of the wearer. This ring was originally prepared for Song Xiao, but Song Xiao had fallen out with him, so he decided to give it to Kuei Si. Oh, you couldn't give this ring to Song Xiao and now you're giving it to me, Kuei Si said indifferently. Do you think that I, Kuei Si, can't compare to Song Xiao? You're only giving it to me because he doesn't want it anymore? Yang Dingtian bowed and said, I wouldn't dare. Then Yang Dingtian said, in fact, I wasn't even going to take out this ring. Because I respect Senior Kuei Si's character, I decided to directly ask for the fourth stage of the pig-slaying sword art. The only thing I can give you is my respect, my favor, and my promise. But you asked me what I was going to use in exchange, so I can only give you this Cosmos ring for now. Then, Yang Dingtian continued, this time, I came to Earth-Splitting City not for the fourth stage of the pig-slaying sword art, but to form an alliance with the great Earth-Splitting City to fight against the evil ways. Forming an alliance with Cloud Sky City? Kuei Si said indifferently, what can Earth-Splitting City get? Yang Dingtian was stunned again. Why was Kuei Si having such an attitude? But Yang Dingtian still said seriously, Earth-Splitting City will get my most loyal friendship. You're too hypocritical. Be more direct. Kuei Si said, after forming an alliance, I will advance and retreat together with Earth-Splitting City. We'll live and die together. If Earth-Splitting City encounters any danger, I, Yang Dingtian, and Cloud Sky City will do our best, even if we have to pay with our lives. Yang Dingtian said hot-bloodedly. Moreover, I'm about to set up the Xian Energy Condensation Purification Array. Earth-Splitting City will unconditionally enjoy half of it. When Earth-Splitting City is attacked, no matter how far away it is, Cloud Sky City will do our best to fight alongside Earth-Splitting City. Yang Dingtian's intense and fiery voice resonated throughout the entire main hall. He didn't talk about money or treasures. He felt that it was shameful to say these things. But he was willing to give the most precious thing. That was his promise. Maybe to others, these words were hypocritical. But to Yang Dingtian, these were the limits of what he could give. Without a doubt, Sir Yang Dingtian, I believe in the sincerity of your words. Kuei Si said, but I don't think Earth-Splitting City needs to form an alliance with you. No one can do anything to Earth-Splitting City, and no one can attack Earth-Splitting City, even if it's evil ways, even if it's the Legion of Doom. Kuei Si said arrogantly, Earth-Splitting City has the most complicated terrain in the world. It has the most powerful aerial army in the world. My underground city will never be broken. It will never be defeated. So, we don't need to form an alliance with anyone. Then, Kuei-si looked at Yang Dingtian from the darkness and said, City Lord Yang Dingtian, I respect you very much. I also admire your sincerity and bravery. But I don't think you can win this war. I think you and Cloud Sky City's destruction is a foregone conclusion. So you can't help Earth-splitting city in the future. The so-called profound Qi condensation purification array can't be built either. I don't think you have any hope of winning in this hopeless war. Of course, respected City Lord Yang Dingtian, I'm willing to give you unlimited blessings. I'm also willing to give you a golden claw demon eagle. But forget about the alliance. Earth-splitting city doesn't rely on anyone. There's also no need to talk about borrowing troops, Kuei-si said indifferently. As for the 4th rank of the pig-slaying sword art, if you can survive this war, then when you come to Earth-splitting city, I'll give it to you unconditionally. But now forget about it. If you're destined to be destroyed, then I don't think you should waste the 4th rank of the pig-slaying sword art. Then the main hall fell into silence. Yang Dingtian's heart was ice cold. He really didn't think that it would end like this. Previously, he was really full of hope for Kuei-si, but he didn't think that he would be so arrogant and so stubborn. Alright, respected City Lord Yang Dingtian, the war is imminent. I won't keep you as a guest. I believe that everyone in Cloud Sky City is also waiting for you. Please go back. Kuei-si smiled and said, The golden claw demon eagle that I'm giving you will be waiting for you outside Earth-splitting city. Rumble. Then the city gate opened. Outside a faint light shone in. Yang Dingtian saw City Lord Kuei-si sitting high up in the air again. There were also more than 10 elders of Earth-splitting city around him. At this moment, everyone was looking at Yang Dingtian with pitiful and apathetic eyes. Looking at them, they didn't look like humans. Instead, they looked like Buddha statues in the main hall. At this moment, no words could describe the disappointment in Yang Dingtian's heart. He endured the incomparable bitterness and anger, bowed deeply towards Kuei-si, and then retreated and left. Because Kuei-si and Earth-splitting city didn't know him anything. If there was no resonance in his heart, Yang Dingtian couldn't expect to get anything here. After walking out of Devour City, the leading demon eagle knight immediately came up to Yang Dingtian and looked at him with a questioning gaze. Yang Dingtian shook his head bitterly. Suddenly, the demon eagle knight's expression darkened and said bitterly, I'll send you out. Yang Dingtian said. Then, under the protection of dozens of demon eagle knights, Yang Dingtian flew through the long tunnel and came to the huge underground city. He kept flying up and rushed out of Earth-splitting city's crack and came to the surface. At this moment, a huge golden claw demon eagle was flying in circles on the ground. This was the gift that Kuei-si had given to Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian smiled bitterly in his heart. He wanted to borrow an army, but the other party gave him one. This made Yang Dingtian think of some jokes on Earth. Someone asked to borrow 10,000 yuan, and the other party directly gave him 300 yuan and said to take it and spend it, and there was no need to return it. Yang Dingtian was disappointed and even angry, but he couldn't complain. He could blame Earth-splitting city for being short-sighted, but he couldn't resent it because the other party didn't owe him anything. On the contrary, Yang Dingtian still owed him a huge favor. Yang Dingtian didn't want this golden claw demon eagle. He used a mystical skill and flew towards the north. This visit from beginning to end did not exceed 2 hours. He came with great hope, but left with great disappointment. I'm sorry, the demon eagle knight said. No, it's nothing. Yang Dingtian. Remember, in the future, when Earth-splitting city needs me, Yang Dingtian, I will still appear from the northern sky, and I will still fight side by side with Earth-splitting city. Immediately, dozens of demon eagle knights' eyes turned hot, and they bowed deeply. Yang Dingtian flew towards the north at full speed. After flying for hundreds of miles, there was a vast sea below. Suddenly, a sharp ship drilled out of the sea, and then it split open, and a person walked out. A thin and tall young man dressed in black, with disheveled hair, red eyes, deep eyes, and a high nose. I am Earth-Splitting City's young Lord Kuei Ning. Greetings to City Lord Yang Dingtian. The thin young man bowed and said, Can I invite City Lord Yang Dingtian to come down for a chat? Yang Dingtian was slightly stunned, and then he landed on the strange ship. Please, Kuei Ning said, and then he went into the cabin. Yang Dingtian also followed. Immediately, the strange ship drilled into the sea again. This strange ship was not big, and it was very similar to the submarines on Earth. It also had 2 pointed ends, and it was convenient to sneak under the sea. In the narrow cabin, Kuei Ning bowed and said, This is a matter of great importance, so Kuei Ning can only wait here for City Lord Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian said in shock, What happened? I was in Earth-Splitting City just now. Why didn't young Lord ask to meet me there? Kuei Ning said, May I ask City Lord Yang, why did you come to my Earth-Splitting City this time? Alliance borrow troops. Yang Dingtian. Unfortunately, your father has already rejected. He is very arrogant. May I ask City Lord Yang Dingtian, what are you willing to pay for the alliance and borrowing troops? Kuei Ning asked. Yang Dingtian. I will give everything I have, and I will become the most loyal ally of Earth-Splitting City. As long as Earth-Splitting City upholds justice, I will never betray them. In the future, as long as Earth-Splitting City needs help, no matter who or what forces threaten Earth-Splitting City or invade Earth-Splitting City, I, Yang Dingtian, will give everything I have to fight side by side with Earth-Splitting City, even if it costs me my life. Yang Dingtian spoke each and every word passionately. He repeated this oath that sounded extremely hypocritical, but was actually extremely sincere. Inside the cabin, there was not a single sound. After a long time, Kuei Ning said, I believe your words. Earth-Splitting City is willing to form an alliance with you. We are willing to lend troops. Yang Dingtian was stunned for a moment. Then he bowed and said, Thank you for your kindness, young city lord. But your father has already rejected. That person is not my father, Kuei Ning said in a trembling voice. In fact, ever since my father left Eastern Cloud State, he has completely disappeared. I had no choice but to ask the Cloud Sky Pavilion for help, and they sent out a few hundred secret submarines to search everywhere. They did not find any trace of my father. Yang Dingtian immediately shivered as he hissed, City Lord Kuei has gone missing? If that was the case, then it would be a huge blow to the forces of justice. The worst-case scenario would be that Kuei had already fallen into the hands of the Temple of Annihilation. However, perhaps the situation has not reached the worst yet, Kuei Ning said. In fact, the Evil Way's emissary Wu Maji came to Earth-Splitting City to negotiate and bribe us. He offered a huge price in exchange for us to send troops to attack Cloud Sky City, even if it was just a symbolic attack. Therefore, I am guessing that my father has not fallen into their hands. Otherwise, they would not have offered such a high price. Yang Dingtian nodded. However, if Kuei had not fallen into the hands of the Evil Ways, then where had he gone? One had to know that his cultivation was infinitely close to that of a grandmaster. There were not many people in the world who could kill him, Kuei Ning continued. In order to not affect the morale of the troops, we have always claimed that my father has returned to Earth-Splitting City. Therefore, the person who spoke to you just now was actually my father's substitute. Yang Dingtian immediately let out a long sigh of relief. He felt that it was strange. Kuei should not be such an arrogant and short-sighted person. Although he had an intense temperament, he was definitely not a shallow person. Yang Dingtian was pleasantly surprised. Then the attitude in the main hall just now was also fake? Earth-Splitting City is willing to lend troops, and is willing to join the alliance? No, Kuei Ning said. Everything that my father's substitute said just now was true. It was the attitude of the Earth-Splitting City's Elders Guild. They are currently facing great pressure. Although they have not agreed to the Evil Way's request, they definitely do not dare to ally with you and openly oppose the Evil Ways. My father's disappearance has caused them to feel unprecedented fear. Following which, Earth-Splitting City's young Lord Kuei Ning continued. When the news of my father roaring at the Tiando League spread, he immediately disappeared. Earth-Splitting City entered its most tense and most fearful period. We knew that when you heard the news of the Tiando League, you would definitely come to Earth-Splitting City to request for an alliance. Therefore, after some discussion, they decided to reject your request. Then, they waited for you to come knocking on their door. Yang Dingtian nodded. I can understand. Kuei Ning said. When my father went to participate in the Tiando League, he once told me solemnly that if there was a day where he could not return, if he lost all traces of him, I would not look for him. He told me not to look for him and not to panic. He told me to lead the Demon Vulture Army to Cloud Sky City to participate in the war. He said that if you won, he would have a chance to live. If you lost, then Earth-Splitting City was destined to be destroyed. Yang Dingtian's heart trembled. He did not expect that under Kuei Si's stubborn face, there would be such a far-sighted and brave vision. Kuei Ning continued. Therefore, I once argued with the Elders Guild to request for an alliance with Cloud Sky City, and to send troops to participate in the war. However, the conservative and fearful Elders Guild still rejected my suggestion. Therefore, when I knew that you came to Earth-Splitting City, I knew that you would definitely be rejected. Therefore, I waited for you here. Yang Dingtian bowed deeply once again and said, Thank you, young City Lord. City Lord Yang Dingtian. I am willing to lead 1,000 Demon Vulture Army to Cloud Sky City and fight alongside you. Kuei Ning bowed deeply and said, From now on, until the war ends, I will obey any of your orders. Yang Dingtian's heart was surging with emotions. He did not say anything and could only bow deeply. 1,000 Demon Vulture Army was more than enough. It was better than Yang Dingtian's expectations. He originally thought that even if he borrowed a few hundred Demon Vulture Army, it would be enough. After all, this was the trump card of Earth-Splitting City, and there were only about 3,000 of them. Moreover, Earth-Splitting City was also very dangerous. This trump card army still had to protect the entire Earth-Splitting City, and even the entire southern Ningzhou. 1,000 Demon Vulture Cavalry was enough to destroy the 10,000 Golden Eagle Army in the Eagle Nest. It was even enough to deal a devastating blow to the hundreds of thousands of ground troops. This 1,000 Demon Vulture Army was enough to turn the tide of the war. Following that, Kuei Ning said with a bitter face, But there is bad news. Because of Father's influence, we all secretly hoped to go to Cloud Sky City to participate in the war. Therefore, the Elders Guild took away all of our commander's seals. I can't even mobilize a team of Demon Vulture Cavalry now, so I have to think of a way to steal the commander's seal from the Elders Guild. Without the commander's seal, no one can mobilize a Demon Vulture Cavalry. Yang Dingtian. Then where is the commander's seal now? In the secret room of the Devouring Fortress's Elder Pavilion. It is locked in an invulnerable bloody black gold box. 13 elders are guarding it day and night, Kuei Ning said. Of these 13 elders, 5 are masters and 8 are 9-star revered martial artists. Therefore, there is almost no possibility of stealing it. Yang Dingtian. How big is that bloody black gold box? 5 inches square. Kuei Ning said. Then do you have an identical bloody black gold box in your hands? Yang Dingtian asked. I do have it. My father used it to store other treasures. Kuei Ning said. I can take it out. Good. Then when will the Elders Guild's secret room be opened? Yang Dingtian asked. My mother has the authority to open it and check inside, Kuei Ning said. Yang Dingtian. Then it's fine. I have a way to take out the commander's seal. But first, you have to give me the identical bloody black gold box. You have a way. How is that possible? Kuei Ning said. No matter how high your cultivation is, you can't take away the commander's seal in front of the 13 elders without anyone knowing. Yang Dingtian said firmly. I can. It's best not to take any risks, and you can't make a move. Kuei Ning said. If there is no risk, I will definitely not make a move. Yang Dingtian said. Kuei Ning said in shock. Then I can't imagine any way to do this. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath, then used the invisibility Xian skill, and instantly disappeared from Kuei Ning's sight. Immediately, Kuei Ning looked at all this in disbelief. Devour Castle's Elder Pavilion. The 13 elders sat cross-legged around a secret room. An incomparably powerful aura enveloped every inch of space. Not to mention anyone, even a fly would not be able to escape from their aura lock. Indeed, as Kuei Ning said, no one would be able to take away the commander's seal under the eyes of these 13 elders. The mature and dignified city lord's wife walked in leisurely. Open the secret room. I want to check if the commander's seal exists. The city lord's wife said indifferently. Yes, the 13 elders said indifferently. Then, 4 of them stepped forward, took out 4 keys, and opened the door of the secret room in the middle. Rumble. The ground cracked open. This was the passage to the secret room. The entire secret room was only 4 to 5 square meters, completely embedded in the ground. The door of the secret room was made of gold steel, and was 4 to 5 chi thick. Then, the 4 elders followed the city lord's wife, and walked into the secret room together. Of course, young Ding Tian also entered together. This stealth mystic skill was extremely heaven-defying. In the isolated space, no matter how powerful it would not be able to detect any aura of young Ding Tian. After the city lord's wife carefully inspected the secret room, she nodded to the 4 elders, then turned and walked out. After the 4 elders confirmed that the commander's seal was hidden in the bloody black gold box, they also turned and walked out. And young Ding Tian stayed in the secret room. After the city lord's wife and the 4 elders left, the thick door of the secret room closed again. Young Ding Tian did not appear, but quickly took the bloody black gold box with the commander's seal into his isolated space. At the same time, he quickly prepared an identical bloody black gold box and put it in its original place. Young Ding Tian's speed was incomparably fast, and his movements were incomparably small. It was almost completed in less than 0.1 seconds, and the movement caused was definitely smaller than a mosquito. However, the monitoring of the 13 elders was incomparably powerful. Even so, the movement was smaller than a mosquito flying by, but it immediately alarmed the 5 elders. The 5 people's expressions changed, and they immediately stood up and checked every corner of the space. Of course, they could not find any movement. Then, they immediately opened the secret room and carefully checked the bloody black gold box. In the secret room, there was no movement, no life, and no energy aura. They were very confident that in such a small environment, even if a hair fell, they could lock onto it. And the bloody black gold box did not change at all. It's okay, we almost became frightened birds. The great elder laughed at himself, and then the 5 of them left the secret room. Of course, before they left, young Ding Tian had already gone invisible. Did you get it? Kuei Ning asked nervously. Yang Ding Tian nodded and directly took out the bloody black gold box. Then Yang Ding Tian condensed the mystic fire and slashed it. It easily opened the bloody black gold box. A commander's seal carved from an energy crystal lay there quietly, releasing a unique energy aura. City Lord Yang, leave immediately, and wait for me on the surface of the sea. Kuei Ning said excitedly. I will go to the barracks now. At most an hour. I will lead the demon vulture army and appear in front of you. Okay. Young Ding Tian turned invisible and quickly left Splitting Earth City. On the surface of the sea, Yang Ding Tian was still invisible, quietly floating on the sea. He waited quietly, waiting for the overlord of the sky, waiting for the demon vulture army that was about to belong to him. Suddenly, the surrounding air trembled violently, and the entire sea shook violently. Then the sky suddenly darkened. Whoosh 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 whoosh, countless sounds of air whistling, countless sounds of air exploding. Densely packed, the demon vulture army, like thousands of fighter jets, they instantly streaked across the sky, covering the sky and covering the sun. The world was dark. Whoosh! Yang Ding Tian suddenly appeared. Kuei Ning suddenly waved his hand, and the flying demon vulture army instantly froze. In the air, they formed an incomparably sharp formation, as if they were frozen in an instant. This was the overlord of the sky, flying like the wind and still like a mountain. City Lord Yang Ding Tian, the first army of the Splitting Earth City Demon Vulture Army, requests to join the Righteous Alliance Army. Please accept. Kuei Ning shouted loudly, and then raised a golden token sword high above his head. Welcome to the Righteous Army. Welcome to the Tiando League Alliance Army. Yang Dingtian raised the golden token sword high and said loudly, I order, the first army of the Demon Vulture Army, target Cloud Sky City, advance at full speed. Yes, everyone shouted in unison. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In an instant, 1,000 Demon Vulture Army, like lightning, streaked across the sky, tearing through the air, whistling towards the northwest direction of Cloud Sky City. This overlord of the sky would cause a devastating blow to the evil army of the Temple of Annihilation in the war. Chapter 469. Kuei Ning, do you think our 1,000 over Demon Vulture cavalry can be used as a surprise force to reach Cloud Sky City without anyone knowing? Yang Dingtian. From the beginning to the end, our enemies can't discover us until we deal a fatal blow to them on the battlefield? Kuei Ning said, City Lord Yang, there are a few conditions that need to be met. First, when we moved out on a large scale, the people of Fisher City saw us. I believe that there must be spies from evil ways in Fisher City. Therefore, we need to completely seal off Fisher City. Not a single person, bird, or ship can leave. Yang Dingtian nodded. This was very, very difficult to do. After all, the army they saw just now was in the tens of thousands. But don't worry about this. If it was in other places, it would be impossible to completely seal off the news. But in Fisher City it's easy. Kuei Ning said. Because Fisher City is more than 5,000 miles away from the nearest continent. It's completely isolated. Therefore, if you want to send news to the northwest continent, there are only 3 ways. Take a ship out to sea, send a message by bird, or leave on a flying mount. But 3 days ago, Fisher City had already ordered that not a single bird or ship can leave South Xiangzhou. We have the world's fastest and most powerful Demon Vulture Army. It can be said that no bird or ship can escape. Then Kuei Ning said, If you're still worried, I can immediately send people back and ask them to double the patrols. Yang Dingtian was about to nod, but Kuei Ning smiled and said, No need, they've already caught up. Yang Dingtian turned around and saw that they had indeed caught up. More than 1,000 demon vultures were chasing at full speed. Obviously, Kuei Ning and Yang Dingtian's theft of the commander's seal had been exposed. Fisher City sent people to block them to prevent Kuei Ning's Demon Vulture Army from going north. City Lord Yang, what should we do? Kuei Ning said, We'll go full speed ahead and ignore them. Yang Dingtian, I don't know your army well. Everything is up to you. Kuei Ning nodded and waved his hand. Stop. Whoosh. Even though Yang Dingtian had already seen it once, he still couldn't help but feel shocked. After flying for 700 to 800 kilometers, Kuei Ning gave the order, and the army of 1,000 demon eagles instantly stopped, not dashing forward at all. This scene was truly breathtaking. The fighter jets of the Earth era were far from being able to achieve this. It was as if inertia did not exist on the bodies of the Demon Vulture Army. Stop. With a crisp shout, the 1,000 Demon Vulture Legion that was chasing behind him stopped instantly, as if they were frozen in the air. The 2 Demon Vulture Legions were a few hundred meters apart, silently facing each other. A knight in purple armor slowly flew over. His deep eyes looked coldly at Yang Dingtian, and then he said to Kuei Ning, Commander Kuei Ning of the 1st Demon Vulture Legion, colluded with outsiders, stole the commander's seal, and secretly took away the Demon Vulture Legion. How should he be punished? Kuei Ning bowed and said, Greetings, Grand Commander. This person was actually the Grand Commander of the entire Demon Vulture Army. As the young master, Kuei Ning was only the commander of the 1st Legion. Moreover, she was actually a woman. Listening to her voice, she seemed to be a mature and cold woman. Come, arrest Kuei Ning immediately, the female commander said. Yang Dingtian was about to step forward, but Kuei Ning gently made a gesture to stop him. Then, Kuei Ning suddenly pulled out his sword and placed it on his neck, and said fervently, Aunt, if you don't let Kuei Ning fight to the death with evil ways, what's the point of me staying in this broken body? I'll die in front of you. Are you threatening me? The female commander said. I dare not. Kuei Ning said. The female commander looked at all the Demon Vulture Knights in front of her and said, All of you come back with me. However, no one moved. All of you, are you going to disobey orders? The female commander shouted coldly. The entire sky was still silent. The female commander came in front of Kuei Ning and said coldly, "How can you take away the entire First Legion? Or rather, how can you only take the First Legion?" Kuei Ning was stunned. "First Legion, 13579 teams, follow me back to the Earth-splitting city. Second Legion 135 teams. Third Legion 79 teams. Reinforce the Northern Expeditionary Army." The female commander ordered crisply, and then said to Kuei Ning unhappily, "What are you doing as a young master? Our Demon Vulture Legion hasn't had a real battle for decades. It's not easy to have a chance to fight on the battlefield. But you only brought the First Legion, and didn't think of letting the entire army participate in the real battle." Immediately, young Dingtian was startled. This female commander was actually putting on a show. "Thank you, Aunt." Kuei Ning was immediately overjoyed and said, "First Legion 13579 teams. All step out and obey orders. Return to the Earth-splitting city." Immediately, there was a cry in the air. They went north to participate in the battle in high spirits. Who knew that they were actually intercepted and then pulled back to the Earth-splitting city? Although unwilling, all the Demon Vulture Legion still obeyed the order at the first moment. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The following performance made young Dingtian dumbfounded again. Almost only a few seconds, the 5 teams of Demon Vulture cavalry that young Dingtian stretched out his hand, quickly left the team, and flew behind the female commander. And the 5 teams of Demon Vulture cavalry opposite flew over at the same time, filling up the team formation behind young Dingtian. 2 teams of 500 Demon Vulture cavalry instantly intertwined in the air, like lightning. One side's gaze was fiery and excited. The other side's gaze was like wanting to kill people. Very soon, the 2 sides finished exchanging troops. The Demon Vulture Legion that young Dingtian brought to Cloud Heaven City was still 1,000 people. But half of them were from the 2nd and 3rd Legions. "Aunt, if you go back like this, will you be punished?" Kuei Ning could not help but ask. That female commander said indifferently, "The bottom line that the Elders Guild gave me is to bring half of the First Legion back to the Earth-splitting city. I've already done it, what punishment is there?" Immediately, young Dingtian was stunned. Kuei Ning was also stunned. This frosty woman actually also had this kind of cold humor. That's right, she brought the 500 people of the First Legion back. But she gave the 500 people of the 2nd and 3rd Legions to young Dingtian. This should be considered as a naked provocation to the Elders Guild. Young Dingtian stepped forward, bowing deeply towards her. That female commander waved her hand. Immediately a huge and handsome demon vulture flew up. She faced young Dingtian. "This is a gift from my Earth-splitting city, why don't you accept it?" Young Dingtian's face immediately turned red and said, "I'm ashamed." Then, he left Kuei Ning's mount and landed on his own demon vulture. That female commander took off her helmet, revealing a mature and beautiful face, bowing towards young Dingtian and said, "Earth-splitting city's Demon Vulture Legion's great commander Kuei Qing congratulates City Lord Young Dingtian in advance to victory and kill all Yama." Young Dingtian did not have any mental preparation and was instantly pierced by her beautiful face, especially by her beautiful eyes and red lips. He was stunned for a moment, then bowed and said, "Thank you, Miss Kuei Qing." Kuei Qing looked at her nephew Kuei Ning, and a trace of love appeared in her eyes, but her face became sterner, and she said, "Kid, when you go to Cloud Heaven City, don't embarrass my Kuei family." "Yes," Kuei Ning said loudly, and then his eyes turned hot. "Aunt, after I leave, I'll leave Earth-splitting city to you. You have to be careful." "I don't need you to say that," Kuei Qing said coldly. "Oh right, Aunt, we want to be a surprise army, so I hope you can seal off all information about us going north, and not let the evil ways know that our Demon Vulture Legion has entered Cloud Heaven City. That will give them a fatal blow," Kuei Ning said. Kuei Qing said with disdain, "When you think of this, the information will have already flown a few hundred miles away. I've already sealed off Earth-splitting city and killed dozens of people. All right, you can go now." "Yes," Kuei Ning said. Young Dingtian nodded at her again. Kuei Qing returned the greeting, and then put on her helmet again, hiding her beautiful and cold face in the helmet. Yang Dingtian led a new 1,000 Demon Vulture Legion, and continued to fly north. Kuei Ning, your aunt is very impressive, Yang Dingtian said. Of course, Kuei Ning said. My father is powerful, but sometimes he's too stubborn, and he doesn't like politics, so most of the affairs in Earth-Splitting City are taken care of by my aunt. Yang Dingtian said. What's the highest altitude that the Demon Vulture Legion can fly to? 3,500 feet. Kuei Ning said. Instantly, Yang Dingtian was speechless. This was really not inferior to the modern fighter jets on Earth. Alright, then we'll go north in a straight line, and while it's night, we'll take a detour to the land of chaos, then enter Cloud Heaven City in the west, Yang Dingtian said. This way we can enter without anyone knowing. Yes, Kuei Ning said. However, the only trouble is on the surface of the sea, Yang Dingtian said. From here to the land of chaos, it's a full 10,000 miles. We'll definitely encounter ships, and they might be the fleet of the Middle State Expeditionary Army. Even if we're a few thousand feet in the air, we'll still be discovered. Don't worry, we won't be discovered, Kuei Ning said. Yang Dingtian was suddenly shocked and puzzled. Of course, ordinary ships couldn't discover flying objects above 10,000 meters, but the Middle State Expeditionary Army fleet would definitely discover them. But Kuei Ning said that they wouldn't be discovered, so he must have his reasons. The 1,000 Demon Vulture Legion continued to fly north quickly. Suddenly, an intense light bird flew in front of them. This was released by the Demon Vulture Legion, which was equivalent to the Army's scout. This intense light bird was a kind of half-energy creature. Its flying speed was faster than the Demon Vulture, but its flying time was relatively short. Every once in a while, it had to return to the Demon Vulture to recover its energy. The intense light bird flapped its wings in front of Kuei Ning, sending a certain signal. Kuei Ning said, City Lord Yang, 300 miles ahead there's a large fleet. It should be the Middle State Expeditionary Army. We have to hide from their sight immediately. Is there a way? Yang Dingtian asked. Yes, Kuei Ning said. Then he suddenly ordered, Demon Vulture Legion Expeditionary Army dive. Following Kuei Ning's order. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Suddenly, the 1,000 Demon Vulture cavalry, like arrows, plunged into the sea. Their speed was extremely fast. Pa 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 pa. Yang Dingtian even heard the sound of sonic booms. The diving speed of the Demon Vulture was so terrifying. Whoosh 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 whoosh. In Yang Dingtian's incomparably stunned eyes, these 1,000 Demon Vultures all plunged into the sea like lightning. And like the best divers, such a huge body, as straight as the water, only raised a small wave. Then this Demon Vulture Legion actually dived dozens of meters into the water, moving quickly in the sea. Yang Dingtian was completely stunned. This Demon Vulture Legion was too heaven-defying. Not only could they go to the sky, but they could also go to the sea. Their speed in the air was extremely fast, and their speed in the sea was even faster than ordinary fast boats. Their streamlined bodies like swords made their speed at the bottom of the sea so amazing. In this way, 1,000 Demon Vulture cavalry, after diving for hundreds of miles in the water, until they were out of the sight of the Zhongzhou fleet, then they rose into the air. Like a fighter jet, they flew thousands of meters high in the sky. Yang Dingtian knew that the Demon Vulture Legion was powerful, but he really didn't expect it to be so powerful. This kind of demon beast was actually an amphibious creature. And the most exaggerated thing was that while flying at the bottom of the sea, they also ate their own lunch. While diving quickly, they hunted the sea creatures to fill their stomachs. In this way, this Demon Vulture Legion rested 3 times in the sea and flew for more than 10 hours. When it was dark, they officially entered the land of chaos. Then, without stopping, taking advantage of the night, they flew thousands of meters high in the sky and quickly flew toward Cloud Sky City. In just more than 2 hours, they had already reached the sky above Cloud Sky City. However, Yang Dingtian didn't know whether to be happy or worried. This was because when 1,000 Demon Vulture Legion flew over Cloud Sky City, none of the patrolling winged cavalry of Cloud Sky City discovered them. Yang Dingtian, descended from the demon vulture. When he landed 2,000 meters in the air, the patrolling winged cavalry of Cloud Sky City discovered Yang Dingtian and immediately surrounded him. When they saw that it was Yang Dingtian, they were immediately excited and bowed down in the air. Yang Dingtian ordered, "All the patrolling winged cavalry within 200 miles of Cloud Sky City's airspace withdraw." The leader of the patrolling cavalry was slightly stunned and then shouted, "Yes." Yang Dingtian continued to order all the soldiers, scouts, and spies in Cloud Sky Mountain, all the fortresses and all the caves to withdraw. The patrolling cavalry was even more puzzled, but still shouted, "Yes." Yang Dingtian handed the order to the leader of the patrolling cavalry. Immediately, the leader of the cavalry quickly accepted the order and went to convey Yang Dingtian's order. About half an hour after the leader of the patrolling cavalry left, a familiar voice came quickly. It was Song Chunhua. At this moment, Yang Dingtian even felt that she was fragile and unable to bear the burden. This had never happened before, because Song Chunhua had always been like a mountain, fearless in the face of danger, not panicking in the face of danger. Sect leader. When Song Chunhua saw Yang Dingtian, her beautiful eyes suddenly lit up. Then she desperately suppressed her excitement and said, "You're finally back. Did things go well?" "Very well," Yang Dingtian said. "That's good." Song Chunhua let out a long sigh of relief and said, "After Qin Huayu saw your order, he already went to clear the entire Cloud Sky Mountain." Although she was very curious, Song Chunhua didn't ask why the entire Cloud Sky Mountain was cleared. "Come, I'll take you to see someone in a team," Yang Dingtian said. Then, he suddenly flew up into the sky, and Song Chunhua followed closely behind. They flew up to a height of 5,000 meters. Suddenly, Song Chunhua's body shook. 1,000 incomparably huge demon vultures neatly lined up in the sky. They were almost motionless and didn't even make any sound. Although there were only 1,000 of them, they covered dozens of miles in the sky. Their momentum was greater than that of an army with thousands of men and horses. "This is the young master of Earth-splitting city Kuei Ning." Yang Dingtian introduced each other. "This is World Society's Song Chunhua." Kuei Ning bowed and said, "I'm very honored to be able to fight side by side with young Master Song." Song Chunhua's eyes were blazing, but she only said one sentence, "Welcome to the team." 4 hours later, the entire Cloud Sky Mountain was cleared. Then, under Kuei Ning's command, more than 1,000 demon vulture cavalry silently swooped down and quickly hid in the various caves of Cloud Sky Mountain. Throughout the entire process, not to mention the enemies outside, even the people of Cloud Sky City didn't feel anything. They only felt that there was a sudden gust of wind. After these 1,000 demon vultures entered the caves of Cloud Sky Mountain, they had to undergo a long period of recuperation. This was because they had flown more than 10,000 miles. Although they had rested in the sea 3 times, flying more than 10,000 miles in 20 hours was an extremely shocking number. It had almost reached their limit. In fact, Yang Dingtian already found it hard to understand. Although the demon vultures had huge bodies, they didn't have enough energy to support them to fly more than 10,000 miles. Ordinary flying mounts could at most fly 3,000 to 4,000 miles. Any further, and they would have to keep changing mounts. However, after the demon vultures entered the caves, the cavalry took out purple-red crystals and began to feed the demon vultures. Yang Dingtian understood where the demon vultures' astonishing energy came from. Yang Dingtian said to Kuei Ning, "I'm going back to Cloud Sky City. Do you want to come with me to meet future comrades?" Kuei Ning said, "Tomorrow." However, generally speaking, no one would cross the sea because the sea water was poisonous, and the sea situation here was very complicated. However, this time, Song Xiao actually chose to cross the sea. It was obvious that he was eager for a big battle. So far, nearly half of the World Society army has crossed the sea. Nearly 100,000 troops have already established a defensive line around the coastline. In about 5 days, the remaining army will all cross the sea and come south to attack from behind Cloud Sky City. Shimen Lai said, From the coast to Cloud Sky City is 530 miles, but the terrain is extremely complicated. I believe that the marching speed of the World Society Army, other than the Demon Dragon Army, won't be too fast. Then, Shimen Lai pointed to the west and said, the Western Army of the Punitive Army, which is the joint army of Northwest Qin City and White Cloud City, is now about 1,800 miles away from Cloud Sky City. However, there is a deep ravine in the middle. Currently, the engineers of Qin City are desperately building the suspension bridge. Moreover, Qin City has deployed more than 1,000 winged cavalry warriors to protect the army building the suspension bridge. Then, Shimen Lai pointed to the east and said, the Eastern Army of the Punitive Army is the most complicated. Currently, the army of more than 100,000 troops, led by the Divine Weapons Villa, is only 600 miles away from Cloud Sky City. However, on the southwest coastline, the Expeditionary Army of Zhongzhou is still continuously landing. Therefore, the army of the Divine Weapons Villa has started to camp 600 miles east of Cloud Sky City and is no longer advancing. Finally, Shimen Lai pointed to the south and said, the Southern Army of the Punitive Army is made up of 3 parts. The first is the Barbarian Mercenary Army in the Sunset Mountains. The second is the Sky Phoenix Pavilion Army, and the third is the Ning Clan of the South Sea. Currently, the army of the Sky Phoenix Pavilion has already landed on the south coast. The Barbarian Army has already walked down the Sunset Mountains and gathered on the plains 500 miles away from Cloud Sky City. However, most of the Barbarian Army is made up of infantrymen and only a small number of cavalrymen. Therefore, it should take them at least 5 days to reach the first line of defense of Cloud Sky City. Qin Huayu said. In other words, the 4 armies of the Punitive Army will only gather at the first line of defense of Cloud Sky City after at least 5 days. Madame Shimen suddenly asked, how many troops do the enemy have in total? It should be close to 1 million, Shimen Lai said. According to our current information, it should be close to 1 million. Suddenly, everyone present gasped in surprise. Although they had already expected it, they still couldn't help but tremble when they heard the number of over 1 million. It's not just 1 million, Yang Dingtian said. It should be about 1.5 million or even more. This is because the number of the Expeditionary Army of Zhongzhou has already exceeded 400,000, and it's still increasing. In an instant, the lights in the hall trembled, and everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Commander Shimen, is our secret weapon enough to destroy 1.5 million soldiers? Song Chunhua asked. Not enough, Shimen Lai said. If we allow the enemy's million-strong army to set up a formation in front of Cloud Sky City, our soldiers will definitely be defeated. No matter how brave our soldiers are, they will collapse instantly. Everyone nodded. That's right. What kind of scene was 1.5 million soldiers? It could be said that no one present had ever seen such a scene before. Yang Dingtian had never seen such a scene before either. Even in the movies, he had never seen such a scene before. In the Battle of Gondor in The Lord of the Rings, the Orc army only had 200,000 soldiers, but it was already enough to cover the ground and cover the sky. 1.5 million soldiers could almost cover a few hundred miles of land. By then, even if it was flooded, it would be enough to drown Cloud Sky City. No matter how high the morale of any army was, when they saw the formation of 1.5 million soldiers, they would collapse. Instantly, everyone looked at Yang Dingtian. To be honest, Song Chunhua and Qin Huayu had already rehearsed this battle on the sand table countless times. However, all the results were without exception, and there was almost no hope of winning. Yang Dingtian looked at everyone and said slowly, the probability of us winning this battle is more than 80%. When these words came out, everyone was shocked and looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief. Yang Dingtian continued, Commander Shimen, is our secret weapon enough to destroy 400,000 enemies? 400,000? Enough, Shimen Lai said. Then it's enough, Yang Dingtian said. On the day of the final battle, what we really have to face is only the enemy's southern army. That is 400,000 barbarian tribe mercenaries, and 50,000 Sky Phoenix Pavilion, and South Sea Ning clan allied forces. We can make it so that the remaining 1 million soldiers won't be able to arrive and join forces. Then, young Dingtian smiled and said, I believe that they will be very happy to see this. Then, young Dingtian ordered, let's not sit here and wait for the enemy to arrive. Song Chunhua, order 2,000 Demon Dragon Army soldiers to follow me and attack the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa's Eastern Army. They are too close to us, so we have to warn them. Yes, Song Chunhua said. More than 2 hours later, the 2,000 overlords of the land, the Demon Dragon Army, were like black ghosts. Under the leadership of Yang Dingtian, they attacked the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa's Eastern Army at lightning speed. The enemy hadn't started the battle, but Yang Dingtian took the initiative to attack. He wanted to give them a big surprise and a big shock. If he didn't kill at least 10,000 people, he wouldn't be able to raise their morale, and he wouldn't be able to scare these impatient capitulators. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.